were executives from all different levels that were on the line. And and from that perspective, it was just very, very intense.
Have you bought this one?
But we did, we got through it. Most important.
Down.
They fire questions at you, like rapid fire. They're ready to go. There's no.
Computer's almost done too, isn't it?
We were there for so long.
Simply could
I'm
not
just gonna loss on 14% for 3 hours. Opposite.
Wait, let me know what that was.
It's gonna fail.
Yeah, no, let me
probably.
know when that's.
15
Maybe I'll
minutes.
take.
I'll keep you posted.
Thank you.
Simulation. I was thinking about
I just kind
Really? You're just not with the time. Really. Yeah. So do you like the passion one?
Andrew.
No, I think there's a passion one in the class problem.
My favorite.
It's a passion, but
I meant to say real, not retail. It was a typo.
Oh, I didn't notice.
That's gonna lower. This is gonna lower my battery like a percent. Just do that. That was 5. I was being sarcastic. I don't have a charger, but here's
The tips.
No. Do another triathlon coming up. I think so.
Yeah, bring it.
Dugan, can you hear us?
That'd be fun.
That would be so
It's not like too far, but it's like.
You got us? Tom, can you hear us?
Yes, Professor, we can.
Make sure you keep the ALCS on mute in the background. Can you see the screen? Awesome.
Okay.
I don't want to do it in like time, but
Right.
if I press
You
it's fine. Yeah.
I'll wait for
But
Louis.
you don't really know.
I know that they're right on their way.
Get that going. That's pretty crazy.
let's get started. Let's recap night 5 at the Cube. All right, before we move on, I think this is week 7, night 7. Let's talk a little bit about what we discussed at the Cube. Give me something that you guys took away from that night besides the pizza. All right, besides the pizza that we had that night, what did you learn? What were some key takeaways? What did Joe Moran tell you guys if you didn't know going into that evening?
I wouldn't say I didn't know it, but kind of just pursuing a relationship regardless of if you were able to make a sale initially, kind of like keeping that relationship. Like you said, he always had people that maybe he wouldn't make a sale with eventually, but he'd just keep going with them, like keeping that relationship. Maybe it would lead to sale, maybe it wouldn't.
All right. So keeping a relationship, think about that tonight when Jerry Acuff is talking to you guys. All right, think about that exact thing when he comes in, yes.
Backing off that, but he was keen on not going in fully with a set plan, and we've talked about it before, but he was really, he talked a lot about how he was able to adjust in setting, kind of read people. That was, he felt was one of his strengths because he formed relationships is what he holds highly dearly to him. So even if you want to make a sale, like he said, he made sure to always find something to make a relationship off of. The long run that can work out. Doesn't, he still kept that relationship available.
All right, so find something to build a relationship off of, build a relationship here. I see a theme, yes.
Also keep it more objective about the customer and the product itself, not make it too personal about yourself. I know he was talking about when we divided the groups about never making it a pity sort of thing and making it too personally about yourself.
Right, he was very passionate about that. There was a couple of times that he said that he was really passionate about not making it about you. I tend to push back a little bit on that. And there's ways that you can do that, right? There's ways that you can have people come aboard and be emotional and be vulnerable in sales. I think that that's important. But to his point, I could see where he's going with that. Who else? Who else got something from Joe Moran or something else that we discussed? Yes.
We also, like, going off of like adapting and stuff, we also talked about how like there's always going to be like distractions and like people who are trying to rattle you and like I guess throw you off your game. And one of his strategies for kind of like filtering that out is just like addressing it, either like just like a humorous manner or just to kind of address the elephant in the room. So
All right.
Story told.
All right. Awesome. Anything else? What do you got?
One thing I took away is that it's important to be yourself and be genuine. Try like starting off like a casual conversation to just make the customer feel more comfortable.
All right. Customer comfortability is obviously tantamount to sales. You don't want them to be uncomfortable with what you're talking about. So good pickup right there. Anyone else? Yeah.
Kind of something he said that stuck with me was just kind of how he always likes to acknowledge that if he's going into a sales call, if they already kind of have somebody else who's already in that role, and just kind of acknowledging that and being like, he kind of said like, I'm sensitive to that. It's just kind of acknowledging like where the customer's at, what other hurdles they might have outside of just like whether they like your product or not.
All right. So think about what the customer's going through. We're going to talk about a little bit about that tonight. Getting in the mind of the customer. Jerry Acuff is a master at getting in the mind of the customer and building foundational relationships. I don't know if you guys spent the time to look at some of the YouTube clips on Delta Point, but that's what he's a master of. Nick Richardson is the master of gaining people and bringing people on board in his business. Texas Rangers are a baseball team, and he has to bring revenue into that stadium. How does he do it? How does he approach people, companies, in order to gain revenue into that system, right? Amelia, can you come up here real quick? So talk about customer retention, talk about customer acquisitions, okay? I'm wearing this sweatshirt tonight in part because A, it's a great sweatshirt. I got a lot of compliments on this at the game on Sunday or Saturday, whenever I was at the game. But I think it's a really important note from a customer acquisition perspective, but also a sales perspective. So do you want to tell the students about how I came to be wearing this sweatshirt?
Yeah, so I reached out to our professor and I just said I made this sweatshirt. I need a few more orders to meet my goal for the month for my sales quota. And he said, okay, I'm on it. Let me work some magic. So reached out to a few of his friends, sent the link around, and that's how he's wearing it today.
So what I liked about this was we went through this whole process and I got a great email back from Amelia. And well, I don't know if it was all our friends or whatnot, but certainly there were other people. Come here, please. Wait after class, okay? Couple of things right there. But what I liked about it was, how do we relate this to effective selling? So let me ask you guys, before I put it on Amelia, how do you relate what Amelia did in this process to effective selling?
Like taking initiative, and like she knew that she needed to make a certain quota, so she went out of her way to like create a new entry point in sales.
All right, yep.
Leveraging connections, like she knows you're like you're locally welcome, and she knows also that you would be willing to help her reach out to more people to help them to kind of market for a Wolf sweatshirt, right? So it's leveraging that connection with you and leading it to other, reaching other customers.
Knowing the market, right? Knowing who to ask in the market, doing a little bit of market research. I think she sat through 4 or 5 classes and heard me talk a little bit about Waltham, right? Who else? You had your hand up?
Yeah, I was gonna just say utilizing your networks and relationships.
All right, so it's one thing to email the professor and say, all right, I need to sell, what was it, 250
Yeah.
of these sweatshirts? I don't know, what did you come in?
270.
All right, 270. So, A, I knew what the goal was, right? She told me right off the front that the goal was 250. I think I asked you that. But most importantly, when this was all done, I asked you and I sent an email out, I said, it's all good, but what did you learn from this experience?
Like everything is there, it's all in front of you, you just have to chase after it. Like the amount of people that I had to personally ask, would you buy one of these? You had to ask personally, you couldn't just post about it on Instagram and have someone click on a link and purchase it. Getting that personal connection with someone of saying, hey, you look really good in this color, or I think this color would make your eyes pop, like those things are what really got a lot of people to buy my shirts.
Not only that, it was local. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. So persistence, who said that word? Right, persistence is number one. All right, Amelia took a shot and she didn't have to email me, but she said, hey, listen, I need some help on this. Would you be willing to help me? I guarantee everyone in this class, if you ask somebody for help, 9 times out of 10, that person is gonna say yes, right? Let me see.
Oh, shoot.
See, I class can attest, I had the greatest shoes on 2 weeks ago.
Oh, bro.
Just telling you, right? Am I wrong? 9 times out of 10, people are willing to help you if you ask. That's all it takes, right? A simple, hey, I need this, and people are willing to help you. So a great example of effective selling. Knowing your market, knowing what your goals are, and asking somebody to help you. 250 was the goal, she came in at 270. I don't know what University Tees does, but I'm sure you'll get more. Are you still working there, or was that one time? So, I mean, are you still designing, or is that it?
So basically what my job is, I create customized apparel for organizations on campus, whether it's Bentley Investment Group, a sorority, a fraternity on campus. I create the clothing for them that they see fit. It gets delivered to campus, and then I also have a Bentley Waltham line that I'm organizing right now. So I don't know about you guys, but I think the stuff at the bookstore is very ugly and very expensive, and I can make better and cheaper clothes. So I'm gonna be releasing those soon, and then I'm also working on more Waltham stuff as well, so.
So if you guys saw the post game last night of the Red Sox, I think you all saw Kyle Schwarber in a Waltham Hawks shirt, right? It was probably bought at Walgreens, but now there's a big pub-up going on about Waltham Hawks, and he's kind of put us on the map. And there was a huge group text going around with all of our buddies. I said, that's good, because nothing has really happened in this town since the Industrial Revolution, and they were making watches here. So it's actually a good thing. Think about the brands that we're talking about. We talked a little bit about this 2 weeks ago, right? Brands are synonymous with something from a marketing perspective, right? When you look at the Dallas Cowboys, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
America's team.
America's team, okay? How do you sell that? You're a marketing guy, you're a sales guy for the Dallas Cowboys. How do you sell that?
I mean, are you asking me or?
I'm asking you.
Oh, all right.
I'm putting you on the spot right now.
How do you sell America's team?
Yes.
I mean, put on, I guess, just put a really good team together, because you can't be America's team if you're awful.
All right, so you put a really good team together. Everybody agree with that? If you were a sales guy and you were a ticket guy, right? And you said, hey, listen, I'm coming in here, I'm wearing this green outfit, and I want to sell you the Dallas Cowboys premium suites. How do you approach a customer?
It's the experience. Like, that's what the Cowboys are known for, like big jumbotron cheerleaders, like uniforms are unique.
Visualization, right? So think about this visual, right? Big stadium, $1 billion stadium. Anybody ever been to the stadium yet? No, it's incredible. You have? It's incredible. Like, the stadium sells itself. I can show a video at halftime here of me trying to kick a field goal at that stadium, and it didn't go so well. It was terrible, but I did a punt back.
How many yards?
I hit some guy in the back. It was terrible. It really was. It was not a good kick for me, but they sell the stadium, right? They sell an experience. Sean Penix is gonna be coming in here in a week or so, who works for the Cowboys, who works for the Legends Club. You can ask him those questions. How do you sell this? If you're a brand, how do you sell Eddie Bauer? What are some things that come, you're a sales guy for Eddie Bauer, right? You're going out there and you say, hey, listen, I got this great X, Y, and Z. How do you sell that brand?
That's like trendy, that is like popular now.
All right,
So like other people wearing the outfits.
all right. Trendy, what else?
You make like a personal connection saying like it's usable, it's comfortable, it's practical, you can apply it to different types of activities, stuff like that.
AB?
A lot of their merchandise is primarily targeted toward adventurers in the sense that like outdoors people.
Outdoorsy, right? It's like REI, outdoors. So you're gonna go in there and pitch, this Eddie Bauer line, it's gonna be more based towards outdoors. Now, would you go to an ice skating rink and sell that? Probably not. So know your market audience. Same thing with all these brands. Jordan brand, look, right? You got some great sneaks on tonight. Why do you buy those?
Honestly, they look really good.
Okay, so time out. So honestly, they look really good. Is that a selling point for Jordan? Okay, so you're a sales rep for Jordan brand. What are you going in there and what are you saying from an effective selling perspective? How do you sell that brand?
I'm gonna say the way, like, how they appeal differently from different sneakers, how they stand out amongst the crowd. If you put the next like Nike, Adidas, Under Armour. Nike, Adidas, Under Armour kind of have like a similar look to it, but Jordan will specifically stand out amongst those three sneakers.
All right. You got this one right here. What's the target audience? How did Bentley sell you? Was it business? Was it an opportunity to come to a university for business? Was it an opportunity to come sit in the class on a Tuesday night with a bald-headed bearded guy and learn about selling? Was that the big selling point? Right, so think about why you came to Bentley. What was the selling point for you?
Return on investment.
Okay, return. You're gonna get out of here with a great job, hopefully, right? Same thing for me at Northeastern, the co-op, yes.
More personalized experience, that you don't just feel like a number, smaller classrooms.
All right, smaller classrooms, you feel like somebody, you're not a number. I remember at Northeastern, I was in one of these rooms with 200 people, right? I mean, the guy had no idea who I was a number, yes.
Biggest network, like the network.
Network, yep. You guys are gonna get out of this class with a ton of networking, right? Alexis, go ahead.
The location, you're close to a city, but you're not in a city, you still get a campus.
Right, so the recruitment people for Bentley have it pretty easy. Right, there's a lot that they can draw from an effective selling perspective. What the challenge here is when you guys are encountering brands, LLB, what's the selling point for that?
Similar to Eddie Bauer.
Right. Outdoorsy, right? Maine, locally owned, right? You want to support the local owned places. That's what the brands do, but there's a selling point behind every one of them. Struggle is when you guys go out, think about how you would relate effective selling to all these brands, right? Didn't get into this too much last week because this is basically an eyesore, but there's ways to differentiate your products. We just did this for this. So you just differentiated all these products with all those words that you use. This is how I differentiate my product when I'm out in the field, right? So confusing, right? Right, this is super confusing. This is me. Right here, that's my product that I sell right there. A little bit more intricate, a little bit more difficult than going out there and selling a premium suite than the Dallas Cowboys, right? That kind of sells itself. How do I differentiate this? What's my sales opportunity in differentiating this product from all of these other products? Now, I told you when I first started this class, not a science guy, right? Anybody in this room a science person? Anybody in here a finance person? Economic, okay, that's almost like science. I mean, because you gotta know numbers and whatnot, right? So I'm totally not there, but that is what I have to learn. In order to differentiate my product from the competitors, I have to know everything that's going on this screen. Because my customers expect me to. Your customers expect you to know everything that there is about this brand, about this. Right, when recruiters come out and try to recruit people to come play sports here. Those things that all of you just mentioned, lower class sizes, close to a city, All of those things, I'm sure that that's what they say, right? Same thing for me. I have to simplify this down in order for my customer to feel what I'm talking about, right? Now, we're gonna go through an exercise tonight with ADP. You're selling yourself. You're selling yourself in this approach exercise. So think about ways that you guys are gonna sell yourself to potential employers. What are some things that you can draw on from this course to separate yourself from the competitors? All right, we'll get into that in 2 minutes. Can anybody read this? Do I have a volunteer to read this out loud? Anybody? Go ahead, Michael. Please, please,
Okay, yeah, sure. You cannot segment a field sales job. Everything must work into a daily mix. You have to make the sales, do the follow-up, and set future appointments all at once, every day, all day. Business on the run is what you must be good at. No need to hurry, but you must work in 3 spheres every day. What am I doing? A recall objective. What did I promise I would do? Follow up and follow through. Our products we sell and must deliver. What am I going to do? What will be my key appointment next week or next month, around which I will build a day or a week of appointments? What will I do if I can't close that key meeting? When can I realistically reschedule? It's not hard to do all this once it becomes routine. A phone is available after every sales call, even while driving to the next call. You can sometimes use wait time to check on appointments. You sell an appointment the same way you sell an annual contract. Best to think of phones as two-way radios. Be brief, get to the point, get what you want, and get off the air. Sell meetings only on the phone if at all possible. No planning days, no phone days, no administration days. These are all part of every day. If you are in sales, don't attempt multitasking, just mix them all together. The best in the business do it this way.
What does this mean?
I think it's about like being efficient with your time and like you're not, as a salesman, you're not gonna sit at a desk all day and like plan appointments and like check your phone and stuff like that. You wanna be doing that stuff while you're on the go, while you're meeting people. So don't dedicate time to, follow up, catch up with people and reach out to people. Make sure you're doing that in between what your real job is, which is meeting face to face, establishing those connections, and selling the product.
All right, anybody in hybrid world have anything to say about this? Can you guys read that? Did you hear what Mike said? Do you guys get this? Your thoughts? Mr. Dugan, we see you. You're in the back of the room. That's why I'm calling it.
It's a little fuzzy. I can't.
All right, somebody in the room. What else does this mean?
I think it's about putting like the same amount of effort into every single task you have in a day. And I like the line that's you sell an appointment the same way you sell an annual contract. And so there's not really any time to like say, oh, I'm gonna do that later, or scheduling an appointment's like less important. I need to focus on this. Like you have to have like a strong plan to be able to accomplish like each task as if like it's weighted the same.
All right. What does this line mean right here? What does that mean to you guys?
I guess like people don't want to hear like the jibber jabber, like all the BS. They just want to they just want to hear the point. I think you don't want to like beat around the bush. You just want to like be direct and finite and use your time wisely.
All right.
I think when you're in person, obviously you try to make those connections and have those conversations, but when you get someone on the phone, they're busy somewhere else doing something else. So it's important just to make it as efficient as possible because no one really wants to be on the phone for too long.
What was the first thing that you said?
Me?
Yeah.
You make your connections and have those conversations when you're in person with them.
In person, right? Value in-person interactions over interactions on the phone, right? It's great to set up appointments while you're on the phone, but get that face-to-face. Be eyeball to eyeball with somebody, right? Feel like you're in the arena. Feel that nervous energy when you're there and you're in front of somebody. Great to do it this way, even better when you're face-to-face with somebody, right? You can close the deals, you can do all of those things when you're face-to-face. Let me just, before we get into Kobe, It's still right there. So let's go into Kobe, the mindset of a winner. All right. Give me some things that you guys took out of seeing this guy, who is arguably, in my opinion, second best player of all time. I know somebody said earlier in this class that LeBron was the best, which is a complete joke, but we all know that. So you guys watched this, I think it was 14-minute or 44-minute segment. Some takeaways that you have out of it.
I really liked how he was just so open about talking about his failures, and I feel like that's like super important because he took every single, even if it was like something little or something big, like any single like sort of defeat or failure as like a learning moment and reflected on it and kind of built upon it, which made him better overall.
So fear of failure? Is that what you were saying?
Like he didn't have any fear of failure. He was just so open about talking about it.
All right, no fear of failure. Who else?
I kind of just assumed that he was just born with all that talent, but found out that he actually was trash and he just worked so hard. He was just willing to work harder than every other person out there. It was just, I was so blown away by that.
He referenced something like on Friday nights or Saturday nights, all of his friends would go out and he'd just sit there and shoot and shoot and shoot. Think about it from a mental discipline perspective, right? Think about mindset, right? Yes.
That rather than looking like at the broader problem or situation, look deep inside it and know like the tactics to resolve your strategy or goal.
So strategy, tactics, right? Yeah.
He's a perfectionist, and even like when he does something well, he still goes back and tries to make it better and tries to perfect it.
Perfection. Who else?
I liked when he's talking about his book, he talked about how he split up into two parts, the process and the craft. During the process, like the preparation that goes into something, and the craft was actually performing what you practice. I just thought about that in terms of sales, like the preparation that goes into it, but then actually executing on what you prepared.
Dig deeper on that. What is that telling you? Like, what does that mean to you?
I think it shows the importance of both. Like, kind of, we always talk about like not only preparing like for something or for a sales call, but also during it, executing it, adapting if you need to, kind of building off just everything you built on and executing it effectively.
All right.
Well, first of all, I have Kobe as the 8th best player of all time, but yeah, I got him at 8.
Nice. Do we believe?
I can show I can show the list.
I want to hear the list. Hold on, let's hear this list. Before we move on, I gotta hear what this is.
Accurate.
He wrote it down too. This is impressive.
I have the top 30 on my phone, in my opinion. Michael Jordan, LeBron, Kareem, Shaq, Magic, Tim Duncan. I have Hakeem over Kobe, so that's a little questionable.
Where the hell is Larry Bird?
Thank you.
Larry Bird's 9. Who said that?
I mean, LB's got to be on that list.
I got Larry at 9. But anyways, so my takeaway is listen and pay attention to the specific motivations of your teammate. He said that was the most important component of success, being able to figure out what drives your colleagues or who you're with, your team. So yeah, that was a big takeaway too, that Phil Jackson taught him that.
All right, who else? Yeah.
He said take everything negative and makes an opportunity to rise from it.
Take everything negative and use it as an opportunity to rise from it, right? Take no's in sales and use it as an opportunity to rise from it. Yes.
Being an effective team player is critical. And one thing that really stood out to me, I don't think it was one of his own actions, but the coach was saying that he should kind of pull himself back, that the other player that he wants to build more confidence in gains that.
All right, Phil Jackson. Yeah, Jake.
I thought it was really interesting how he was like, the interviewer asked him what's the hardest thing about being retired, and he was like, I don't get to like hear like people's gratification and like the actual emotion of what people are experiencing. And that I was like, oh, that actually is probably pretty similar to what it's like to be a salesperson, because you're solving people's problems. And I'm sure like sometimes people will like write you a little thank you email, but a lot of times I'm sure you'll make a sale and you'll never hear from that person again. So you don't really know. I mean, I don't know, but I'm just assuming.
No, I mean, it's completely true. But I think in Nick Richardson can talk about this, the value in saying thank you is tenfold. Right? I teach it to my reps. I'll teach it to all you guys. The value of saying those two words will get you more down the road in your careers, whether you're finance, marketing, economics, sales, Thank you means a lot to people. Bucky.
The way he is with like giving people like that emotional drive, the thing he did with Paul Gasol and the gold medal. I've never heard anybody really give anybody that type of drive in their life.
Well, what else does that show you about him as a person? And how do you relate that to effective selling? What's the word selfless mean?
It's really not trying to be there for other people, you know. When he did that emotional connection, I kind of thought of the first couple of weeks, the guy was trying to sell what's that thing called? The wheel.
Oh, yeah,
How he kind of put like an emotional, feel to it.
Yep.
I immediately thought of that guy.
I was really interested in the way that he like described talking to his teammates and talking to like people in general, just so analytically, to the point like I see myself as someone who likes to avoid conflict at all costs because that's just kind of who I am, very diplomatic that way. But when Kobe analyzes like talking to his teammates and talking to his competitors, he always talks about which buttons to push. And so I think Kobe like figures out what means most to his teammates and the people he wants to connect with, and then he will create some conflict, or he'll push a certain button, or he'll do an action specifically to evoke a certain emotional response. So I think that's really interesting and like analytical of him to like, see what's important and to maybe push the boundaries a little bit to evoke a certain response, and then he can use that as advantage to gain.
But could he do that if he didn't know or wasn't comfortable with his teammates?
No.
Could he do that if he wasn't as an effective leader with his teammates, right? So there's a give and take there. You gotta know your audience, you gotta know what you can do and what you can't do with your teammates, who you can push, who you can't push. Same thing if you're a leader. You have to know what reps you can push, what reps you can't push. What buttons can you do, what buttons can't you do? Yeah.
The mentorship aspect that you talked about, most of the people that have come and talked to us, you mentioned it. Everyone has that mentor, that teacher throughout. And he mentioned his father and also Phil Jackson, and how like Phil kind of helped him read people and understand. Like Phil, for example, it was brought up earlier, but like reading Shaq, and Shaq was out and then Shaq was coming back, and for them to win the East, Kobe had to dial it back so that Shaq got back to feeling good. And that whole mindset of just being able to read people, and he said it wasn't a quick process, but over the years, he was able to figure out how to read people, create connections.
He was able to figure out how to read Phil Jackson too.
Yeah.
Right? That relationship matured as he went on. Ivan, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I'd like to add something on perfection, because Kobe mentioned that he focused a lot on fundamentals, because he kind of implied that a lot of people take it for granted. Like, I already know how to do that. And yeah, I kind of had pretty much the same story the other day. But yeah, paying attention to fundamentals is pretty essential, and then build up on that and then progress forward, taking your time.
All right. The best dressed guest I ever had in my class, Nick Richardson, coming to us from, where are you at? You in Arlington, Texas tonight? So coming to us from Arlington, Texas, what do you think about the key values, the key tenets, the key takeaways from Kobe Bryant, the mindset of a winner?
I think the number one thing is just his growth versus fixed mindset, right? So at an early age, he understood that there's a difference between the two, right? And those of us who have a fixed mindset tend to think that we're given, yes, we do have God-given abilities and skills, but those can't be adjusted or grown. And at an early age, he understood that no matter what his natural ability was, and no matter what someone else's natural ability was, hard work and consistency, I think above all, and creating quality habits on a daily basis, not just when you feel like it, can take you from being ordinary to being extraordinary.
So anybody else have thoughts on Kobe? Couple more, yeah, go for it.
I feel bad.
Thank you, Nick.
I already spoke, but when he was talking about work ethic and how the hours, if you outwork people over a period of time, like if you do 70 hours of work a week, you're gonna vastly outpace somebody that does 40 hours a week. So just that consistent work ethic will get you really far.
All right, last one.
I thought it was interesting. He was talking about like his biggest weakness, like thing he had to learn throughout his career. And he said like having compassion. Like he said, he forgot his teammates had lives outside of basketball. It would be too hard on them on sometimes. And I again just thought about sales, like kind of building that relationship outside. I think in my essay I talked about the water dogs you're talking about. Even if it's just like something so stupid, if you can relate with someone outside of what the task at hand is, basketball sales, it kind of just brings you closer together.
Nick, who's the best sales rep you have?
I would say it's probably between two. We've got two guys. One is named Russ Kirshen, and the other one is named Josh Chance. And both of those guys are number one, consistent. Number two, understand building relationships. And then number three, their work ethic is top notch, typically first in, last out. And they understand the product that we're selling. And then they understand how to communicate our product based on the results that the company is trying to achieve or that the individual is trying to achieve.
Consistent, build relationships, first in, first out, right? All those things that we talk about. Now, is there a delta between the best that you have and maybe the people that are at the bottom right now?
Oh, absolutely.
So let me just flush this out real quick. One of the parts in that, two parts of that whole Kobe experience that I loved was there was a rookie. You guys remember this story? The rookie was shooting hoops. The rookie said, I am going to stay here and I am going to survive. I'm going to stay here and wait this guy out. And he's sitting there, he's shooting hoops. And he's shooting hoops for an hour before the game. And he's shooting hoops for 2 hours before the game. 3 hours. And he's looking at Kobe Bryant at 40 years old. He's like, holy shit, this guy can't leave. What am I doing? Like, finally, the rookie leaves. Mindset. Kobe wasn't going to let this guy win. Right? Wasn't going to let this guy win, number one. Number two, to Nick's point, there's always going to be somebody that's here. Always going to be somebody that you're chasing. Who was Kobe chasing his entire career? Jordan, right? So those reps that Nick has, the reps that I have, we're always chasing somebody. For me at my company, it was a kid named Chris McCallum. Multiple President's Club Award winner. I sat him down at a national sales meeting. And I said, listen, I want to talk to you for a half hour. I want to pick your brain and see why you consistently win. What are some things that I can take up in Boston in order to be better, in order to prove that I am the best sales rep on the Northeast? This guy was out in California. And I did it. And I sat with him for a half hour and I got some great pearls. That's what you guys are going to do. You're going to have somebody that you're always chasing, right? I'm sure Nick has those reps right at the bottom. They're chasing those two guys at top. And if he's a good manager, which I know he is, he's coaching them like Phil Jackson coached Kobe Bryant in order to make sure he levels up in every single thing that he does, right? Think about the key takeaways. So you guys mentioned a lot of your key takeaways when it related to Kobe, right? Obsession is not optional. Who said that earlier? There was something that said work ethic, obsession, right? This guy was obsessed in his craft. If you're going into finance, if you're going into selling the Texas Rangers, if you're going into economics or sales, you have to be obsessed, right? You have to be obsessed with what you do. I hope Nick can move that camera and show some of those quotes that he has in his office, because a lot of his office quotes are based on these type of tenets. Missed shots are necessary. Why is that important from an effective selling perspective? Missed shots are necessary.
Well, in the video, he talked about how he learns more from his losses than he does from his wins. He says that he would watch every single game, even the ones that he lost. And I think that shows that missed shots need to happen, because otherwise you can't learn from them.
Yeah, he said he lose a game because of the fact that he can learn from them. Like, he would be able to develop himself even more.
So guys, Nick, thoughts on missed shots are necessary?
Oh, absolutely. Quick story. So a mentor of mine coaches some Navy SEALs, and one of the folks that run the Navy SEAL program had a guy who was a prototypical perfection fit as a Navy SEAL. And if you guys don't know what BUDS is, you should look it up. It's basically physical human torture to create a hardened, both mentally and physical human being to protect our country. Now, this guy was the perfect physical and mental specimen that fit into that category. He went and he did the swim for the first time and failed. And they have a bell in San Diego at Bud's that if you go ring it, you are done. There is no turning back. He went and rang that bell. Well, what he didn't know was everybody fails the swim the first time, but you learn from it and you get better from it. But he had never experienced that type of failure in life. And so he just gave up the first time he fell. And if you don't experience failure after failure, guys, the people you see on social media that are influencers and are multimillionaires, unless they're taking their clothes off, they have been absolutely destroyed at some point in their career and failed to a point where they have learned the right and the wrong and what will take them to the next level and what to avoid. So if you don't have that failure, you're going to keep making the same mistakes over and over again until you actually consume it, absorb, think about it, and figure out a way around it.
Awesome. Methodically eliminate your holes. Everyone in this room has something that they are working on. I do too, right? How do you eliminate those? How do you work on them? How do you get better? You spend time. You do what Kobe did, whether it's sales, whether any profession you go into, you spend time. You practice, right? Today I was on the phone doing an Evolve checkpoint with 3 of my representatives. 3 of them are deficient when it comes to storytelling, when it comes to crafting a message based around our product, that intricate product that I just showed you guys, right? They're not the best at doing it, right? So my challenge to them was methodically eliminate your hole. Spend time. Go through it and practice. Practice your message, practice your cadence. What's it sound like in front of a customer? You guys are going to have an opportunity to do this exercise together tonight, right? Think about those first words. What's it sound like? Explore creative ways to make gains. Think about where we're at, right? Think about where we're at right now as a country, right? We're in a global pandemic. We've had to be more creative in order to do the things we're doing. Nick Richardson's coming to us tonight from Arlington. Jerry Acuff is coming to us tonight from West Coast. We've had to be more creative from a learning perspective, coaching perspective, but also in our day-to-day jobs, right? Think about how you make creativity tantamount. And finally, smart leaders customize. Nick, you're a leader. Give me an example of a way that you've had to customize in order to maximize your sales or in order to maximize what you're doing down there for the Texas Rangers, besides dressing unbelievably.
When I think of the word customize from a leadership standpoint, is kind of where I'll take this. I have a personality and I have a methodology to what I do day in and day out, right? I get up at 5 o'clock. I'm here at the ballpark. By 6:20, I got kind of a long drive to work. I get a 30-minute lift in. I get 30 minutes of cardio in. I jump in the locker room, get cleaned up, showered up, and I'm at my desk by 8:15. Like I have a methodology and a way in which I attack the day. When it comes to humans as a whole, I have a different set of minds across my entire group. So we have 30 sales reps and I quasi oversee all 30 of them, but I directly oversee 8 out of the 30. Every single one of them has a different personality. And so I have to be very flexible and agile when it comes to coaching each of those people so I can get the best out of each of their strengths and find ways to improve their weaknesses along the way. While one guy I have may be really sensitive because of home life, and one girl I have played on the Lebanese national team, and she's hardened. Man, she's got a tough mindset. So I have to coach them differently. I may be able to say something to her like a coach would say on the basketball floor that I can't say to the other guy who grew up in a different lifestyle with a different background. And so I have to be really mindful of those things, adjust, and make sure I'm coaching people differently and not like me. I rarely hire a rep just like me. And so I have to be open to not hiring people just like me, because it takes a diverse community of personalities and people to sell. Because someone like me may not be able to, I mean, I believe I can, but there's some folks that won't mesh well with me as their salesperson. They might mesh well with someone who's really tender. I'm not really tender. You know, I'm not sweet. I'm to the point. Let's go. Let's rock and roll. What can I do to help you? Yes, I can kind of be somewhat of a chameleon and adjust my personality to hopefully give them a phenomenal experience, but they may mesh better with someone who is really soft-spoken and just smooth with their delivery, which isn't always me. So just being diverse and being able to attack different personalities in a different way, I think is extremely important. That's kind of where I'll take that comment from a coaching and leadership standpoint.
One of the hardest things that we can do as leaders is do exactly what Nick just said. You're never going to hire 10 Nicks. You're never going to hire 10 Zevs to go out there. And that's the most difficult part about being a frontline manager. I'll tell you that if you guys ever get to experience it, that to me, you're part therapist, but you also, I mean, it's so true. You're part therapist, but you're never going to hire 10 people like us, right? It's just they're a dime a dozen. And if you get them, hold them, because they're looking for something else, right? They're going to move on if you don't give them what they need. So I always love this, and I always love what you guys tell me, right? After this is all done, I always like to see what you guys gave me from a homework perspective. So a couple of things. Let's put this all in perspective before we go into ADP, right? And before we really grill this guy in Jerry Acuff tonight. With that passion, you should be competing to the best to ever do it. You should want to help his customers and himself and bring about the best possible outcomes. Kobe's competitive drive takes the best of that trait and focuses on what it matters most, passion, right? One of you wrote that to me in the homework, and that's how they related this to effective selling. All right. Secondly, in this fast-paced society, I think we get caught up in the speed of getting things done and not the art. When Kobe said, in my own terms, I realized that no one could put a timeline or a deadline for achieving what you want to achieve. It's on you. Be present in the moment. Be present in the moment. Nobody can put a deadline on what you guys want to achieve in your lives. And finally, a little wordy, I'll get through it though. In sales, you need that consistent motivation and competitive drive to be successful on a day-to-day basis for an extended period of time. Sales is a grind, right? We know this. Like I've hopefully told you guys that sales is a grind. Is that true? Is sales a grind, Nick?
100%, day in, day out.
Right? And some people can't do the grind, right?
Absolutely. Some people don't have the mindset for it.
So some people are unable to handle the toll it can take on you mentally. Kobe became so profound physically and mentally, the mind and body were connected. Right? You never saw him not in the moment, not able to handle the moment. Finally, competitive nature. Kobe was so competitive that he compared himself to all of the NBA GOATs, the Jordans, the Birds, right? We'll put them in there. Not LeBron, right? In basketball history, as well as other leading players in the NBA with a goal to outperform them. And we'll hit you up with a Dallas guy. We'll give you Dirk Nowitzki, all right? Or Glenn Davis. Old school, we'll go, let's see, who else played for the old school Dallas?
A little Jason Kidd action there in the middle.
We'll give you
I think the greatest Maverick though is 100% hands down Dirk. I mean,
oh yeah,
by far, no.
Okay, good. He emphasized the importance of being prepared for every game by practicing enough and doing all that it is required and more for you to excel in the game. Guys, this is all about how we relate things to effective selling, right? Think about what we've done over the last 6 weeks. Mindset, culture, leadership on night 1. Team preparation with that Zoom book. Kobe Bryant, the mindset of a winner. It's all about how we frame things and how we put ourselves in the right mindset to go out and do whatever we got to do. There was nobody that was able to parlay this better than him, especially after he retired winning an Academy Award and just getting to the precipice of his business ventures before his life was cut short. I love going over this because I have a lot of respect for what he was able to do, on the court, but what he was going to do off the court. And there's a lot of parallels that you can draw on that from a sales perspective, all right? So how does that relate to tonight, right? So we're going to spend a few minutes here before we turn it over to these guys. And Nick, I'm gonna go over and do a role play with these folks. It's probably about 10 to 15 minutes. If you wanna hop off, up to you if you wanna stick on. They're gonna do a role play by ADP. You have the syllabus, it's on pages 73 through 76, if you wanna look at it, all right? So, Mucky, Luis, this is you three right here are a group, okay? 1, 2, 3 are a group, 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 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and whoever just left, that's your third, all right? Boom, boom, boom. All right, you got that? So, groups of threes, all right? You got it?
Yeah.
Whoever just left is gonna be your third, all right? So here you go.
Wait.
No, it's,
Let's do this simplified, all right? Well, there's a little confusion here. All right, here we go. We're gonna make this easy. 1, 2, 3 are a group. 1, 2, 3 are a group. Make this easy. 1, 2, 3. That guy that left is a group. All right. Huddle up, get close, I mean, close as we can with, you guys are a group up here. You three wanna get together? You three, okay?
Payroll or payroll?
You guys good?
Come on, you love us.
You good?
I like how you read through this. I like
All
where
right.
you're supposed.
You guys have it? Everybody have it? All right, so listen, here are the rules. Let's not, here we go. Here are the rules. You guys all should have gotten these ahead of time. They're in the syllabus, right? So the goal here is this. One of you is an observer, one of you is the interviewee, one of you is the interviewer, okay? It's a case study. All right? It's a case study. Use it. How do you approach the interviewer? What are the first selling words that you guys use in order to sell yourself to ADP? There are certain criteria that you have to meet in this interview. You guys are all gonna have an opportunity to do it. I'm gonna put 10 minutes on the clock, 15 minutes on the clock. I wanna make sure we have enough time. 5 minutes each. Should take that long to build rapport. And then I'll pick somebody from each group to come up here and we'll play it out in front of the class. Okay? No hiding in a sales class. Nick, are we right about that? Can you hide in a sales class?
You can try. We're gonna find you.
So use this. What do you, so at the end of the day, why are we doing this? So sets come back and every semester I read them. And every semester I try to get better because it's not bullshit what you guys put out there. I actually want to try to get better and do what we do here, right? So one of the sets came back 3 semesters ago and said, I didn't have an opportunity to practice in class, my approach, my dialogue, and my close. Use this time to approach a customer. Use the interviewee as a time to approach what you're going to say to an interviewer, right? Next week, we're going to do dialogue. Last week, the last one is close. What are your first words? How do you build rapport? What's it sound like? I'll give you guys 15 minutes, go for it. Everyone should have an opportunity to go.
Really?
basically,
Yeah.
You never,
to sell.
email me your cell phone.
Every 5 minutes.
Looks like what they need and like what packages and like kind of just basic, yeah, just kind of like the other packages like a little bit. And I kind of
Provide human resources management software.
So basically one of their.
For those of you that are at home doing a hybrid, go on to your syllabus. It's pages 73, 74, 75, and 76. Think about what you guys would say in this scenario. Ivan, Ruin, Vivi, Yvonne, Tom. I will call on you, all right? Think about your first selling words to ADP. What's it sound like? How do you approach this interview, okay?
I guess basically when the person like walked in and like observed. I guess you need like waiver language, they don't have those, so it's I think like one thing where that they.
Sam Simpson.
Another thing was like.
Just a sales pitch.
Yeah, actually, I saw it.
It's just like a rundown of the first packet.
The way this works.
It deposits a file for all. You can preview it before submitting it. You can see total.
So if I were actually doing this, I would want.
What
do I do?
So if you're not the interviewer.
Direct deposit.
Watch it, get some.
And then the plus is everything. And then
That is like the hardest part. Is that
this help desk, which is which is like a resource that's online and on the phone that responds to like questions from the employees. You get background checks on the employees.
They have an iPad.
And it's something like 48% of the applicants like.
What is the bank relation?
I don't know. No, I would say something like.
That has all the. What the employees should have expected of them.
Understand how a service like this could benefit them.
HR which is like an easy way to start tracking. That's important, separate thing. I never liked it about like.
Yeah, I was like.
So I guess like I didn't really like look.
Like so unnatural, like.
Pricing,
So I think we should pitch like.
Well, they for sure at least did the.
Yeah, there we go.
Same, like.
It says something somewhere in the technology.
I think Sam's a guy.
He did, and I was confused with that.
Maybe how all this extra. Yeah. The ability to have this.
I've been talking way too much.
This like online.
Well, maybe how did you guys?
Alright, yeah.
I know.
It doesn't tell you why it's.
I see that, while you're a small firm, you're still using the loan.
That's like.
How that's like.
I'm not gonna
Right there, it's now.
Obviously payroll is something.
Alright.
Like, what do I make it as? Like, 40 minutes CPA.
I'm calling on you, get ready. Persona number 1.
That's culture. So it's like.
I think you heard, if I tell you this, then you should watch.
Can't hear me?
If you just hears that like talk.
He's watching the he's watching the ball game right now. He's watching Schroeder hit another ball.
I think it was like 70%.
I feel like just to like make it online.
Section 4.
Yeah, like we just talked about like what the fuel
But that, we can talk about that later. I want to hear your first selling.
I noticed that you have
includes a few more features that
like how to bring that stuff. All that is like how to
get into the specifics. With an ample customer support.
Generation.
Yeah, we can kind of achieve by taking something. Maybe find more
So one of the reasons that salaries of the.
Say though, maybe you could say something like you could say something maybe more about the business, like
There's not a lot.
maybe talk about John Matthew, if you don't really. Yeah, that's the person. Yeah, so being like, oh, John, like, how'd you meet? Like, great mom. John Matthew, our.
How do you know we know? Yeah, it's third.
Are you guys ready? You guys good? Good?
No.
Yeah.
No. We're not good yet.
1 minute.
I'll be honest.
I need like.
He's our sales guy, of course.
Like, I'm sorry, but I will.
All right, Nick, you're gonna hear an unbelievable role play in front of the room. You ready for this? I don't know what you can see, but hopefully you can see the middle of the screen. Can you see the screen? Your handsome face?
Everyone.
Just like that's. It's just everyone's talking. It's just like the room. Like everyone needs to show.
Yeah.
We provide insurance companies. I know you guys provide laptop cell phones as your employees.
Seem like a.
All right, Zach, if you're talking that long in an approach, you probably talked a little bit too long, okay? So let's, hey, we all get free flowing sometimes, I get it. So let's teach this back, all right? You guys had an opportunity to look at it. Opportunity to dissect this, all right? So we'll call on a couple of groups right now. Let's use you guys. So who was the interviewer? Who was the interviewee?
I was a salesman and she was the.
All right, come up to the front of the room. Come on up. Come on up. Nick, Vivi, Yvonne, can you guys hear us? We're good? Okay. So listen, here's the exercise. This is an approach. This is your first selling words, okay? You got a wide audience, even coming in from Arlington, Texas to hear this tonight. So how do you approach this from an interview perspective, from a sales perspective?
Do you want me to like do the role play or just like tell?
Literally
No, I want you to do the role play.
Do
Okay.
what you just did.
Okay. Hi, Amelia. I'm
Hi.
a sales rep from ADP.
Nice to meet you.
I saw, you wanted to meet with us because of your connection of yours posted on Facebook. And when I walked in, I looked around. I love the place you have here, but I also noticed you have kind of a shortage of employees.
Yes.
Are you guys in need of are you guys kind of understaffed or, how are you managing your growth as a business?
We're growing, understaffed, no, but we're growing, so we need assistance in certain fields and areas, like
What kinds of fields and areas?
payroll, as of right now, that
Definitely.
is a definite need. Our employees need to be paid, and people are gonna be mad at me if I don't have a payroll.
So just kind of a lot of busy work right
Yeah.
now that you
Yeah.
guys, so would you guys be willing to outsource stuff like this?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Fantastic. So at my business, what we do is we provide a ton of different services in 2 different packages. And there's tons of busy work that needs to get done and for a growing business. And you don't really have a lot of people to deal with that
No,
stuff.
I don't.
I walked in, I noticed that your employees have iPhones, iPads, stuff like that. I also noticed there's no posters on the wall with the industry regulations, all that stuff needs to get done. And there's not a lot of people around, which is why I think you would be perfect for our our package plus. I think our package plus can give you the most bang for your buck in terms of what kind of benefits you get per employee.
All right, I'm gonna stop you right there. What do we say? Hey. See, what do you guys think? Let me see, what do you think? Let's deconstruct this, all right? Approach. What do we think about that interaction right there? Nick, did you hear that whole thing? What'd you think? Thumbs up? Okay. What do you guys think from a sales perspective? Think about the approach, what we're trying to do here. What'd you think?
Well, he immediately walked in and talked about the decor.
Okay.
Immediately walked in and talked about his product or what he was actually there to do. Sort of lighten the mood a little bit.
All right, so he connected, talked about something other than ADP. What else?
Very energetic and positive, and I was also gonna say more observational.
Okay, observational, conversational as well, yeah.
He asked about like her goals for the company and then kind of led into how he could help her get there.
All right, perfect. How'd you feel doing it?
Good.
All right,
I felt I could use more time though.
you need more time. We all do,
To establish that authentic connection, I feel like,
but sometimes you don't have it.
that's true.
Sometimes you don't have that time. You know, if you're in with a driver, you don't have the opportunity to connect and do that. So this is a good example, right? You're gonna go into sales or whatever, Zach, you're not gonna have all this time. I'm sure some of his representatives that he has doesn't have all that time to build that rapport. You gotta get into the business, but you gotta be able to feel that. Amelia, what'd you think from your perspective?
I thought he did a really good job. I felt like it was personable. I felt like even though it was a role play, like part of me almost wanted to start looking around to see like if there was actually stuff on the walls. Because I was believing what he was saying. And I am a driver, that's my personality. And so I'm kind of sitting there like twiddling my thumbs a little bit of like, let's get to the point. But I also did appreciate the buildup of the connection that he had. Because at the end of that conversation, I would have picked the package plus rather than the first option, just based off of the advantages and the perks that it would have brought to me.
All right, Nick Richardson, your hands up.
Sir, it says here in the layout, it's talking about a friend that referred. If that's a friend that you know that referred the potential customer, I would always bring that friend up. How do you know that person? That hopefully will build instant rapport between you and them because you have a common connection. And then you could probably, swing from the, hip on this one, but noticing what's around them. If you have the pleasure of going to that person's office, where did they go to school? What are things they like? You can tell if they love their family or not by pictures of their family or different things like that. Or they have quotes on their wall like I do, or if they have, trophies and things like that of accomplishments. Find common ground. That will allow them to open up and be more interested in diving into kind of what their struggles are.
Awesome. Feedback is a gift, right? So think about that. Think about how you connect. Another group. Any volunteers? Another group. This is where you can practice. Like Allen Iverson once said in the practice. All right, let's go over here. Let's see what you guys got. Who's the interviewer? Who's the Who's the interviewee?
Our primary discussion was basically just how to play it, not so much the actual practice of the.
Let's practice it.
The role play.
Let's do it together. Come on. Let's do it.
Guess what? The worst thing that can happen is you bomb. And guess what happens when you bomb?
You learn.
You learn. You get better. We're not gonna make fun of you.
Stage is yours. Stage is yours. What do we say to the guests, sir? What do we say? Come on, practice. We'll be fine. Safety zone. Approach this. Approach it like you would approach somebody at a bar. Only they're trying to get a job.
Well, now I feel like I'm gonna steal the idea of mentioning the connections, but hi, how are you today?
Hi. Hi. How are you? Thanks for coming.
I'm the sales representative from the ADP, so I'm here to talk to you today about the possible payroll methods. And sorry, so you heard about us from a friend of yours.
That's it. Yeah, from Facebook. I was on Facebook and I checked and then I read about your company, so I thought it would be interesting to learn a bit more.
Actually, it's funny that we have a fairly personal relationship with our customers, and very nice man. We enjoyed working with him as well, so it's very
So
interesting
you know
how
him personally.
from working with him, but it's very interesting how small the world is. So let's talk a little bit about your office place. How many people would you have working for you?
For now we have 7 people.
All right, well, then I'll cut right to the chase and I'll say what I notice about your office atmosphere is that you seem like a very tech savvy place. And I would have to recommend, we have 2 options, but what's really standing out to me looking around here is that the payroll plus package option seems best for you. There's multiple digital and
You did it. You did it. You did it. You did it. All right. All right, so feedback here. Now listen, you're gonna be put in uncomfortable situations in this class. That's okay. This is where you can do it, right? You got a dialogue coming up next week, which you're gonna be a little bit more in depth and then closing. And you're gonna be up in front of here with customers at the end of the semester doing your final calibration. So how does that feel to you?
I blacked out.
I do that all the time. So you're nervous, right? It's natural to be nervous, right? It means something to you. If you don't have those nerves, doesn't mean anything to you. So you blacked out. What did you think about her performance after she blacked out?
That was actually pretty good. I didn't feel too pushed, like as if she was giving me too much information and being too much. And so that was actually really good.
All right, feedback. What do you guys think? What'd she do well? Because I can tell you right now, even blacked out, you had a great comment about a customer, right? You really sold her on that customer that they knew, right? So think about that from a visualization, say that 10 times fast, but also an emotional attachment, right? Connecting with your customer. Yeah.
They asked like, she talked about the customer that she worked with prior and then going past like, oh, you were a reference customer. Going past that, she said, I worked with him in the past and I really enjoyed working with him. And obviously it's a role play, so you never actually worked with someone, but if you actually did meet that guy face to face, then like talking about maybe some specifics of like what he enjoyed about it, or just specifics like that only they would know about this person that they worked with previously, I think was a really good to continue harping on that connection.
All right. Who else? Feedback over there. Let's go, boys. Don't be silent. What'd you think?
It was great. The connection.
Give me more than that. It was great. I know. I know it was great. We all know. Let's go.
The way she like came up to the customer, introduced herself, she just built a conversation. She built a conversation.
She built a conversation. What'd you think?
Kind of going off of like what over there said about bringing up John Matthews and stuff. I think like it kind of made the customer more comfortable because they're like, oh, like we both know the same person. Like it's just, I think it just like makes the conversation easier and like kind of like calms everybody's nerves down a little bit by talking about like someone you both know.
All right, so yeah.
I was impressed how she had like a little bit of a hiccup, a little giggle, but she just dived right back in, kept going. Like it's not gonna be perfect, but she did not let her get to her and she just kept going with it.
I think one of the things you said right off the bat, even before you went into this role play, was I'm just gonna steal whatever they did. The best salespeople, guess what? Steal all the material of the best sales rep. So kudos for you for thinking about that, because I do it all the time, right? Why do you think there's so many sales books that have been written? This guy reads a ton of sales books every single week. He's got a ton of this, like, if you look at it, but he steals it. We all do. That's sales. So knowing what this guy did ahead of time, you use that. You put it in your back pocket. You add it to your repertoire. That's how you get better and build. Nick, any thoughts on that? Role play, we'll do one more. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I just remember tone, tempo, and inflection, body language. As far as your delivery, I know all of y'all are nervous, and I say y'all because I live here in Texas. But at the end of the day, you will get comfortable over time. It's okay to be nervous, but remember, your body language is just as important as what's coming out of your mouth. And then one thing that you could have added, you could have used, say, Zev referred me to you. He told me, because you're going to call him, because how do you know Sally? He told me that you all went to grade school, middle school, high school together or whatever. And he loves our product, and he felt like you guys would be a good fit for what we've got going on here. I would love to find out a little bit more about your business so I can make sure that we're a good fit. And then go into your agenda.
Good feedback? All right. Think about, all those things matter. And I know it's nerve wracking. I get it.
Body language is definitely.
I only had one student pass out on me in only one. It was, the room was very hot, I guarantee, but only one has passed out on me. And I saw it going down. And it was, couldn't help. All right, last one. Let's do one more. Any group want to volunteer? Do you want me to volunteer somebody? You guys comfortable? Let's do it. Yeah. Let's try it. Let's give it a shot.
What do you want to do?
Give it a shot. Right, so it's approaching the customer. I'll gong you when we're done, but think about it from an approaching perspective.
Hi, I'm Connor.
Connor, Sam.
Nice to meet you. Matthew actually got me connected with you. His son's actually on my son's basketball team.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's awesome. He's such a cheerleader. He's just killing it. Awesome guy. He told me that you guys are a growing company. You only got 7 workers right now.
Yes, only 7 workers.
Yeah. I'd love that you guys are exploding. You're doing so good that I think that we can have a lot to offer you. I've been looking around the room. You've got some incredible technology around here. We have some great packages that can give you all the information, keep you up to date, so you can see what all your workers are working on. Also notice you don't really have any of the law posters on the wall currently. What we can do for you is, if you pick our plan, we can actually get you those posters, take that off your hands. You don't even have to worry about it. We'll take care of all of that.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah,
It's a
I
lot
know
of extra work that we don't need right now.
Exactly. You're super busy. You got a lot going on. We're here to make things convenient and easy for you. Yeah.
All right, stop right there. Stop right there. All right, have a seat. Let's get some feedback. What'd you think? How'd you feel in that role play?
I was very aware of how much my legs were shaking, and I didn't know they could do that. So that was.
So we got one that almost blacked out. We got your legs are shaking.
They were jelly.
Okay. Now we got 2 people on the line. Jerry Acuff, welcome to PRS 339. Welcome to Bentley University. We got Nick Richardson. If your legs aren't shaking in a sales call, is there something going on? Is there something wrong?
And my philosophy is, if you're not a little bit nervous, then you're probably not doing something that matters.
Right? Mr. Acuff, if you're not nervous about a sales call, is there something going on that we don't know? He's on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute.
You don't have to be smart to shop here. No, I think the nerves are really engendered by wanting to do well. And so I think every time, like when I speak in front of a large group or a small group, I always get nervous. And I say, if I don't get nervous, I get worried. So I think it's just it's like I played college football. I got nervous until somebody knocked the hell out of me. And then I wasn't nervous anymore. So I think it's the same thing in sales. Once you encounter the customer, the nerves, begin to go away, especially if you get comfortable having a conversation.
So nerves happen to me all the time, and it's going to happen as we go on and as we build, and as you guys have to do your final calibration, That's that's normal, not nervous, that's normal. So a little bit more feedback. What else did you guys take out of this call? Yeah.
I mean, I know you were nervous, but your body language was very open and you used your hands really well, so I thought that was really great.
From my perspective, I couldn't even tell that you were nervous. You were calm and collected from my perspective, and then you also gave really good pauses in your dialogue.
All right.
Yeah, I was also just gonna say, I thought that was like the best one in terms of like tone, voice pitch, like how slow he spoke, how he used his body.
So tone, voice pitch, how you use your body?
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
I like the relationship building, even just like something stupid as talking about your son playing basketball, like it builds that relationship, kind of elaborates on just talking about business.
Well, it also helps talking about something other than business, right? It doesn't always have to be about business. It's connections, right? It's not always about that. How do you get your foot in the door? How then do you talk about business? Yeah.
Like how towards the end, he wasn't only trying to sell something, but trying to be more of like a hand of help, a helping hand for their whole company, which is something you definitely want to do when you're trying to pitch a product.
All right. So you nailed something, Pietro, where you said the what was the feedback? It was the tone and what else?
The pitch of his voice and the way he kind of seemed like a friend, just trying to, as he said, give a helping hand. He walked in right away.
So-
about his friends.
We had conversational, right? Where you're selling without selling. You can add in, all right, this is what I'm here to do. I'm looking around the room, but I didn't feel from an observer's perspective that you were selling anything for ADP. Right, Nick?
The one thing that I liked that he did was, and I think if he would have positioned it this way, but he offered extra value about the posters and the additional information that he would take something off of the purchaser's hands, right? So the way you kind of position that is, by working with me, here is what we're able to provide, and then lay out the extra value that you specifically. Now, every single ADP rep may do the same thing, but you make it sound like it's you providing that extra value that will take some worry off of their hands. And he was talking about throwing up the posters and adding some things in the office to kind of help the life of the consumer be a little bit easier. At the end of the day, this is what we're all trying to do with what we're selling. We're providing a service that makes their life easier or more enjoyable.
Great feedback. Feedback now from the customer's perspective, how did you feel?
I felt like it was more like not him like pitching the product so much. It was kind of just, I noticed these things about your environment. How can I help you, aid you, instead of like throwing the product in your face?
All right. Huge, right? Huge. From a sales perspective, that's what you want, right? You want to try to get to that point where you're selling without being sold. I'm going to keep you awake. I got you. Only 8. We got a few more here. So, all right, let's do this. We got Jerry Acuff. We got Nick Richardson. Jerry, where are you calling in from?
Rockbridge, Bath, Virginia.
We got Virginia. We got Texas coming into Waltham, which Kyle Schwarber made very popular last night, right? With his Waltham Hawks jersey. So what we're going to do is I'm going to allow my students here to take a bio break real quick. They're going to go to the bathroom and they're going to come back. What time is it right now? Come back at 7:55. Right? Go out, go take a bathroom break. Let's come back. That's all right. And then we're going to get into questions with Jerry and Nick. Oh, thank you. Good work.
Collect these.
No,
No? All right, cool.
We'll take care of it.
Making me blush.
I love how tiny it is.
You don't like the spot?
Hey, Nick.
It's so lot, like I'd rather just.
You'd rather just pull out.
Yeah. Pull someone listening.
From a Zoom, on Zoom.
I don't know if it's Zoom or just calls.
The most important thing in the exercise is that you're getting somebody that has customer interaction. So as long as you can do that, then absolutely. Yeah.
And so we have to hand you a report.
So next week, the 26th, it's due. So it's a midterm paper due next week.
I know, and early too. I don't like the morning.
Call Joe, talk to Nick, see if there's somebody that they know that they might be able to.
Yeah, I asked Joe already and I sent him another email just to check if he had any.
That's gonna be a problem, I think.
And
And I haven't heard of it yet.
Yeah, it's like a lot to deal with. I'm not sure how people.
I might be able to help you too. So we'll talk about this at the end of the night.
Because I know that others.
People and stuff in the morning.
All right, we'll work on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Order, what I've learned.
So that was like.
There's not, I don't.
Like that was, it was.
You actually-
I don't do a word.
It was just, like, it was crazy. I'm like, how the heck?
I would just do it so that way, you know,
Yeah.
if you did three, if you did
So
three sales calls that
boring.
day and you were customers, yeah, so detail it
I
out.
would like
What,
catch my
the most
mind.
important thing to me is what did you
And I
learn?
was like, really?
What did you learn from that?
It's like, wait, there's a time limit. I haven't had it for 6 years. Mine was online.
I would just do it like that. I would say, all right, what did I take out of it? What did I learn?
Not actually comment, right? So we actually like sales call one, like.
You know, synopsize it. All right, this is,
Yeah.
Professor, you had Courtney
It's like
Morocco in your class?
interesting, but like.
Yeah.
She referred me to Melissa
I love
Landry. Working at Dell. She was
Landry's
in
my
a classroom.
softball star.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I'm doing she's in Texas at Dell, and I'm doing Zoom with her. For the interview or like the midterm project.
Perfect. Perfect.
Courtney told me to tell you hi, so I had to.
Tell her I said hello. She's one of my all-stars.
Yeah.
It's more about.
Jerry, you recognize that handsome guy on the screen?
It's like at least this.
He's gone.
I'm gonna, hopefully this doesn't embarrass you, but I gotta show one quick clip.
You have a partner or is it?
Show whatever.
But.
As long as it's not my wife talking about what a goofball I am.
Nope. That I can promise you.
And then it like goes back to like the support and then you go post.
Wow.
But I like that.
Tired of cold calling? Introducing Lucia, the easiest, most accurate.
One of the things that
To a little bit, right?
I love it.
Your hand up or something. Oh, good stuff.
You need to amend your top 8. That is
It's actually like, I've never seen a
You
better
didn't even
top.
have, you didn't even have Karl Malone in the top 8.
You think Karl Malone? No.
My question for you is, how are you that you're so, did you go to the game last night?
No.
Give me something. You need a cup of coffee, but out of the.
I already had-
I've had way too much.
I've had too
caffeine
much
right now.
caffeine and I'm shaking, but also exhausted.
I should be.
I'm crashing off with too much caffeine like right now. Like,
I did 3 things. I just did a whole thing like all day today, evolved checkpoints and.
You have like adult
You-
energy, you know?
I don't know how.
Yeah, I don't know how
I
either.
don't know how.
It's
Believe
like
me.
a scary phenomenon that I don't know if I'm ready for yet.
You were just talking about that, waking up early in the morning, like that's like.
I'm up, my wife is an animal. She's up at 4:30 every morning.
Oh my God.
She does this new workout thing. So she's up at 4:30 in the morning. She goes, makes the kids lunches, goes to work. She's a nurse at the elementary school right around the corner. Comes home and now she's doing clinicals. So she's at Milton Hospital doing clinicals until 9:30 at night.
So 4:30, 9:30.
That's a long day. That's a long day.
And she's got to deal with me.
Wait, what time does she go to bed then?
She passed out when she gets home,
Oh,
baby.
yeah.
You guys are both grinders.
Grinders. Gotta do it now. Sleep when I'm dead. All right, let's go, guys. Let's go. Let's rock. I mean,
I can tell you exactly where
I don't wanna know.
There's a vending machine. Punch it in.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Great.
Jake's a vending machine menace.
Nobody goes to these Bentley hockey games.
I'm going this weekend.
That place was absolutely awesome for BC the other night and Ohio State.
Because it's BC and Ohio State.
I saw Dukes there. You got to meet the little Z unit. Thank you.
Ohio State one.
Which one?
First one.
I didn't see it. I was there. All right, so as the stragglers get back into the room, come back into the room, I want to welcome formally both Jerry and Nick for spending time tonight. One coming in from Virginia, the other coming in from Texas to talk to you guys and answer your questions about sales, right? So a couple of things to level set before we get started. Number one, I want to turn down these lights real quick. Not all the way down, but just a little bit. Let's see if I can do this. Let's go to reset one. How dark is this gonna become? Oh, let's go maybe two. Let's see. Oh, okay, all right. Oh, all right. We good? Everybody alive? This might be bad news, but I'll try to keep you awake on this one. So a couple of things. Number one. And obviously I'm gonna have Nick and Jerry, they can do a great introduction, but like Amelia, and like we talked about before, I've been teaching this class now for 8 semesters and I've been using the same book every single semester. And every single semester during this chapter in particular, I always see this guy, right? I always see him and he speaks to me. And I always thought, it would be unbelievable if I was to reach out to Jerry Acuff and talk and have him talk to you guys, because it's one thing to read the material from the book, but it's another thing to hear from the men that are on the front lines that are talking about it. One of the quotes of the book says is, in order to think like a buyer, salespeople must understand that the buying process and focus on what the customer is looking for. Remember, this chapter is all about customer and getting into the minds and thinking like the customer. Right? So I looked at that and I said, okay, well, there's a couple of things that this is drawing upon, a couple of things that this is speaking to me about. What is the customer looking for? And Jerry, if I'm wrong, you can certainly have a long time to talk about. They're looking for relationships. Right? They're looking for lasting relationships that they can build upon. So before we go on and before I turn this class over to you guys and over to both Jerry and Nick, let's listen to this real quick.
One of the things that fascinates me more than anything is I can be in a room of 20 salespeople or 200 salespeople, and I can ask them this question. Write down your definition of selling. Now, if I'm in a room with 20 people, how many definitions do you think I get? Yeah, 20. If I'm in a room with 200 people, how many definitions do you think I get? Fairly close to 200. Now, I find that fascinating because selling is truly only two things. And it was really important to me to learn what is selling. In fact, it's the very first chapter in my book, What is Selling? Now, I started my career as a salesperson, and I literally quit my job selling Lipton tea in Jackson, Tennessee, because I couldn't get out of the car and call on customers. You see, my basic personality is introversion. And so I sat in this car and thought, I've got to go in here and sell these people. I got to go in here and convince them to buy my stuff. And I had a hard time doing that because that was in conflict with who I saw myself as a person. I didn't see myself as someone who was pushy and aggressive. Now, then I wound up in the pharmaceutical business, and I listened to a tape one day by a guy named Fred Herman. Now, I'm only back in sales because I think it's PR. And I don't think I got to sell anybody. Now, my boss thought differently. And as I began to learn about selling, I listened to a series of tapes by Fred Herman called Keep It Simple Salesperson. And he changed my life because he taught me the definition of selling. He said, I have two definitions of selling. Number one, selling is teaching. In every successful sale, some education takes place. The customer or prospect learns something that they didn't know before. And so then the question becomes, what do great teachers do? Well, great teachers don't lecture to you all the time. They don't shout at you all the time. They don't let you talk. They make it fun. They make it interactive. They ask you questions that make you think. That's what great salespeople do. And in that process of teaching that way, the customer or prospect uncovers something that they didn't know before. Now, the second thing he said is that selling is not just teaching. Selling is finding out what people want and helping them get it. Wow, that's really interesting. And then he says, there's two things about that that you need to understand. Number one, most people don't know what they want, but they think they do. Our job as a salesperson is to get them to see that what they want, we have, if we do have it. Now, the next thing he said is that if what they want, we don't have, what we do have. I remember distinctly when I listened to that, I said, my gosh, I don't have to sell anybody. All I have to do is go find out what people want. And if what they want, we have, they'll buy. It's why I start every sales call with a client now by saying, I'm not sure that our product or service is right for you. And I won't know that until I understand a little bit about what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish. And so my definition of selling has been critical to me being successful. And if we don't have the right definition of selling, we'll have the wrong behavior. So selling is teaching. Selling is finding out what people want, helping them get it. And if you do that, watch what happens to your sales. They will soar.
So what do you guys think? What do you think of that? Right? The key tenets of what Jerry was talking about on there. Selling is teaching. Right? Finding out what they want and helping them get it. How about that from an effective selling perspective? Right? We talk about how selling is solving somebody's problem, finding those pain points and solving it. That's exactly what Jerry's talking about. Right? Selling is teaching, and I'll let him expound upon it. So let's do this. We're going to do this a little bit differently tonight, just because Jerry and Nick are in on Zoom, right? So what we're going to do is this. We have questions prepared, right, for both Nick and for Jerry. Typically, we do this. I have the speakers prepare nothing. It's all about their key learning. Well, Jerry and Nick, I know you've done this class several times. It's all about what the students ask and how in-depth they ask the questions, because as we all know, questions are part of sales. So I'll have the students come up so you guys can see them right here in front of the monitor, and they can ask the questions that they want to learn about effective selling. Now, if the question is directed towards Jerry and Nick, you want to add in your 2 cents, feel free, please do. This is supposed to be a dialogue and a conversation, all right? So we'll start here. If you want to come up, and we'll just fire questions at Jerry and Nick and have them answer. And obviously, Tom and Ivan, if you guys have questions, just raise your hands and we'll get to you.
Hi, Jerry, and hi, Nick. Thanks for coming.
I want to just introduce yourself
Yes.
and what your major is.
I'm Adriana. I'm a senior. I'm a marketing major and an entrepreneurship minor. This question is for Jerry. I know that you wrote a couple of books about relationship. And I wanted to know what are some tips to build a relationship with people that we find hard to connect because we don't see a similarity with that person?
Yeah, Adriana, actually, I've written 3 books on this, and it's all about how do you build relationships with people you don't naturally connect with. Now, by my count, and this is just my estimation, we naturally connect with probably 25 to 30% of the people we meet. About 75% of the people we meet, we don't naturally connect with. And so the whole book is based on how do you actually connect with people that you don't naturally connect with? Well, it starts with your mindset. You know, one of the things that I was thinking about is Zev was talking, you know, he's thinking about me being on. Well, he finally asked me to be on. But one of the things I tell people, don't make decisions for other people. Don't decide that this person, because they're successful or because that you don't know them, that they wouldn't want to have a relationship with you. Because if your mindset says that you think they would want a relationship with you, you probably have got a much better shot of getting that relationship. The second thing is you got to learn if you want a relationship with somebody, let's say you don't know. So I'll give you an example. So Herb Sendek, who's a basketball coach at the University of Santa Clara, was the basketball coach at Arizona State. And I am a huge basketball junkie. I mentor 4 Division I college basketball coaches. Herb was actually the second coach that I started mentoring, but I didn't know Herb when I moved to Phoenix. All I knew was that he was the 4th youngest coach in the history of college basketball to 400 victories. He was the only coach in basketball, still is, that's been coach of the year in 3 major conferences, the MAC, the Pac-12, and the ACC. But I wanted to have an opportunity to interact with his kids. I wanted to teach his kids the relationship edge in business, which is the book you referenced. And I wanted to also teach them how to set and achieve stretch goals. So I didn't know him, but what I did do is there's a chapter in my book on pyramid hopping, which is how do you leverage the relationships you have to meet other people. And so I just simply asked everybody that I knew well, how well do you know Herb Bendeck, if at all? I asked 10 people. The 10th person said, I know him really well. I said, well, how comfortable would you be introducing me? Now, I didn't say, would you introduce me? I said, how comfortable would you be introducing me? And he said, you want to have breakfast with him next week? And I said, yeah. And so I did. And I've been his mentor now for 13 years. I didn't know him. I was a nobody, still am a nobody. He's wildly famous. So you have to develop ways. But the fastest way to build a relationship with somebody is to find common ground and get them to talk about themselves. You know, I got on an airplane in Chicago one time with a guy named Larry Wingett. And if you don't know who Larry is, you probably ought to Google him because he's really good. But he had 2 big earrings. He had cowboy shirt, stars. He had starched blue jeans. He had purple cowboy boots. And the first thing he said to me when I sat down next to him was, I hate to talk to people on airplanes. Well, no one's ever said that to me before, but I said to myself, okay, you've written 3 best-selling books on relationship building. You should accept his challenge. So as we took off, I just said to him, I said, say, man, can I ask you a personal question? Now, if I were y'all, I'd write that down because that is a brilliant way to get somebody to talk about themselves. Say, can I ask you a personal question? Their curiosity will kill them. They'll be dying to find out. And you can ask, how'd you wind up in Waltham? How did you wind up at Bentley? What did you do when you got here? I mean, there's lots of things you can ask. There's actually 20 questions you can ask that are in the book. But he said, so I said to myself, okay, I said, say, man, can I ask you a personal question? He said, sure. I said, haven't I seen you on television? He said, yeah, what'd you see me on? I told him. And he said, yeah, well, I got a series on A&E called Hey Big Spender. Now it's 3.5 hours from Chicago to Phoenix. He talked for 3.5 hours. He never asked me my name. He didn't ask me what I did for a living. He asked me nothing about me. All I did was keep the conversation going. Now, for me, it was a bit of a game because what he said to me, I felt challenged. But when we landed, here's what he said to me. He said, say, man, where do you live? I said, well, I live right here in Scottsdale. And he said, you and I got to get together. You are the most interesting person I've ever met. Now, how the hell does he know I'm interested? He knows nothing about me. But what he does know is that I was interested in him. And so I think the answer to your question, Adriana, is be interested in other people. Never forget, treat everybody like they're important because they are. And everybody, 99.9% of people are decent. And there's somebody's mother, brother, father, sister, cousin, aunt, uncle. Somebody loves them. And if somebody can love them, so can I. That's my advice.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your answer.
I'm sorry. I'm sitting here shaking my head like a bobblehead because he said exactly, spot on truth. If you want to become interesting, you have to be interested in other people. If you show a level of interest, they may never say a single word or ask a single thing about you, but you showed a level of interest. This gentleman talked his ear off, and then at the end, boom, a relationship was developed because he showed a level of that. Jerry, that is money.
Awesome question.
Thank you.
Yvonne.
Hi, how are you? Thank you both for coming. I have a question. It's kind of 4 questions in one. What is the greatest tip you can give to a business owner if they're stuck with sales? How would you approach it? And what advice would you give to entrepreneurs?
Why don't you take that, Nick?
Yeah, the first part of the question was, what kind of advice would I give a business owner if they were stuck with sales? Stuck as in like they've plateaued, or stuck as in they feel like they're stuck, that's the only career option that they have?
No, like plateaued, like when there's no sales, like everything's flat and everything's like stuck in that way.
From a sports standpoint, spend a lot of money and win, then that cures everything. Just kidding. I would probably start with polling my current clientele and finding out what makes me a unique partner of theirs, why they use my services, why they like my services. I might grab a few quotes if I can, and then I would ask for some introductions. I would ask for some referrals, and just like Jerry said in the last segment, you know, in essence, not saying, hey, can you introduce me to, but saying, you know, what would it look like if you were to introduce me to XYZ? And those are warm introductions. It's still a cold call, if you will, because unless they're calling you to buy, it's almost always a cold call, right? So you got to find out, you know, what their needs are, and what results they're trying to drive as a business, and then how you can fit into that. But I think the first thing I would do is simply, you know, poll my current clients, find out what's unique about me, why they love working with me, ask them for some introductions, and then from there I would work off of that and then compound. I would even ask them what they hate about me. I better be ready for some tough love, but what do they hate about me that I can improve on? I think if you do that, then that will hopefully unstick you.
Yeah, I would throw in because first place, I love everything that Nick said. A couple of things I would say is, you know, every single one of you should learn what I'm about to say. This is Jerry's view of the world, and I've been wrong about a lot of stuff, but I ain't wrong about this. There's two things that you need to be successful, and I don't give a darn what you do, whether it's play Major League Baseball, and I had a pro baseball contract out of high school, but my coach told me I wasn't good enough, so I needed to go to college. But no matter what you do, you need two things. Number one, you better be really good at it. So I would tell that person, get good at it. If you're not good at it, get good at it. But how do you get good at it? Number one, everybody needs a coach. Everybody needs a coach and a mentor. I'm one of the top 10 sales experts in the world, supposedly have been for the last 6 or 7 years. I have 4 mentors. In fact, one of my employees, the guy who's president of my company, is one of my mentors. I count on him to give me advice and guidance when I get stuck. The second thing is you need a network of people that you being good at something matters. And so, you know, this is my 20th year with my company, and we've done business with 18 of the top 100 companies in the world. We have never advertised. We've gotten all of our business through relationships, through, you know, as Nick talked, referrals, what I would call pyramid hopping, which is fundamentally the same thing. But the other thing I would remember is, and Nick touched on this, which I think is great, when he said, ask what people like about you and what they hate about you. You know what that is? That's self-awareness. And the key, just my view of the world, the key to all growth and development is self-awareness. The problem is far too many people are not self-aware. They're not critical enough of themselves. So for example, I know I should not be the president of my company. It's not my skill set. So I gave that job to somebody else and I became CEO. The company's better off. I'm better off. He's better off. Everybody's better off. But if I hung on to my ego, I would say I want to be the president and CEO. Self-awareness is so critical. And so then where do you get self-awareness? Well, one place to get it is from a mentor. Another, just to get it like Nick said, is to go seek the opinions of people that have done business with you. And that'll give you all the self-awareness you need. And it'll give you the things that you probably ought to be doing differently or better to be successful.
Thank you so much.
Great question, Yvonne. Tom, I see you. Vivi, I see you. Ivan, I see you, okay?
Okay, I'm not sure where to look, but hi, guys. Thank you for coming. I kind of have I guess kind of a weird question, but also kind of personal. Speaking of being like self-aware, one thing I kind of struggle with is I'm kind of like restless and I move a lot. And I feel like in a sales situation, I don't know what to do with my body language or myself. Even being up here is like kind of a weird thing for me. So I guess I was just wondering from both of you guys, just like what is some advice is to, I guess, like not only be confident in yourself, but like, you know, what to do when you're with people, how to, you know, statue yourself and make yourself look like you know what you're talking about, I guess.
Nick?
You know, I think the first thing is you got to understand your product. That in itself is going to give you a little bit more self-confidence. If you know your product and you know what you're able to provide, that's going to give some reassurance that worst case scenario, I mean, absolutely, you go in and bomb this thing, you can at least, like last ditch effort, throw a lifeline and start talking about how great your product is and all the benefits that it gives you. Now, that's not the route you want to go. But if you understand your product better, then as you're having conversations with a current or potential client, you're keen as to what they're trying to achieve and how your product can fit. And you can make selling suggestions or buying suggestions to them and kind of guide the conversation. I think that's one huge thing that will send you in the right direction. Secondarily, I mean, I know we just hit on this, but the self-awareness and mentorship, man, get in front of a camera. If you present in person or do face-to-face meetings, get in front of camera or get in front of a mirror and make fun of yourself a little bit, you know, bomb it a little bit and assess your body language and feel what feels right, what feels wrong. And then if you're on the phone, record those conversations and play them back. You will be so critical of the way you sound that you have no other option to either quit or be Kobe Bryant and find a way to get better, right? Do those things, and I think that'll help you, you know, send in the right direction. At the end of the day, practice. Find a mentor, find a peer and practice. And then once you start getting better at it, I would also encourage you to find someone to coach or teach, a mentee, someone that you can help kind of get over the things that you experience stress and frustration about.
Yeah, first place, I think all that is brilliant advice. I mean, first place, product knowledge is so crucial to your success because it gives you the confidence that there's nothing that they can ask you that you're not prepared for. And so that if your product knowledge is exquisite, then that's going to give you a built-in set of confidence. The other thing that Nick talked about, which I think is so important, and I think he said it a little differently than I did, but I think he probably said it better than I did. Most sales are lost in the preparation. We're not prepared. We've not thought about how am I going to open this call? You know, Michael Lunn in his book, The Best Story Wins, says that you got 8 to 10 seconds in order to get somebody to tune in or tune out. And most people in the first 8 or 10 seconds are really boring. If you really plan on how am I going to be interesting? How am I going to use what Brendan Kane in his book would call pattern interruption that makes me want to learn more? That's a really powerful thing to do, but prepare so that you feel so prepared. I mean, it's not much different than what Neil and his organization, you know, does. They practice and prepare so much. Then when they get in the game situation, almost everything is intuitive or it's habitual because they've done it before. And it's not like they're you know, making it, they're not flying by the seat of their pants. The last two things I would say is that for me, necessity was a powerful growth pill. When I, wound up in the pharmaceutical business, I didn't have any choice but to succeed because I had a family, I had bills, I had flunked at my last job, I'd gotten rejected from graduate school at Northeast Louisiana University, which is hard to do. In fact, if you drive by there with your window down, they'll throw a diploma in your car. And so, I didn't have any choice but to succeed. But my good friend, Victoria LeBaum, just wrote a book about 6 months ago called Risk Forward. I highly recommend this book. But one of the things she says on page 62, which I think every single one of you that are young and starting out in the business world should remember, greatness rarely begins great. Greatness rarely begins great. So you'll get better at this the more you do it. You'll get better at this the more you practice it. You'll get better at this the more that you interact with other people that can give you ideas to help you be successful. So, don't worry about how good you are today. Be open to having a growth mindset to figure out what do you do to get better and better and better. Because let me tell you something, 20 years ago when I started this company, I was not great. I'm not sure I'm great today. I can tell you I've read 625 business books since 1981. And I've done that because I believe my old boss used to say, when you're green, you're growing. When you're ripe, you're rotting. And so I have always tried to continue to read, study, and learn. All of that stuff gives you confidence. So confidence solves all your nerve problems once you get kicked in the teeth.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Let's go, Vivi.
Thank you for both for coming. So I have a question to Jerry specifically. So I noticed you said like you work as a leader, like in implementing like innovation ways to sell. So I'm just wondering like what are the traditional ways to sell in today's market, and what is your innovation ways to sell?
Well, the first selling program was written in 1894 to actually sell cash registers. And if you read that, it's called the Patterson Principles. If you read the Patterson Principles, selling has not changed that much since 1894. Now, partly that's because human behavior hasn't changed that much. However, I'm actually writing my 5th book now with a guy named Jeremy Miner. And we actually call this book The New Era of Selling to the Unsellable Generation. What's really changed about selling, and my guess is Nick knows this as well, the internet and the voluminous amount of information that's available on the internet has made it very easy for people to make decisions about buying before they ever talk to a salesperson. And so, what salespeople have to do, in my mind, and this is very consistent with, the definition of selling that Zev showed in that video, is you have to be a problem finder and a problem solver. Oftentimes the customer doesn't understand what their problem is. And if you ask great questions, you actually can uncover it. So I think the big thing about the way I look at sales today and the innovation that I have is, I introduced customer centric selling into the pharmaceutical industry in 1984. So that's an awful long time ago. I can tell you, having worked with many, many companies, most of them are not very good at it. They are still in the product pushing business. They're still in the pitching business. They're still in telling them what to do business. Our bias is that since most people don't know what they want, but they think they do, you really need someone who can identify where the problems and the gaps are that they're not able to see. The other thing you have to remember is that, and this I think is different, and it's been a learning for me over the last year. I used to think that the salesperson was in charge of the sale. You're really not. The person in charge of the sale is the customer. What we're in charge of is the conversation. And if you get people to understand that the way you orchestrate the conversation, how you use tonality, how you get past the gatekeeper, how you actually begin to develop rapport and trust, because trust is so important. As Zev said that, at the very beginning of this class, how important it is to build that relationship and that trust. The way you do that is not be like everybody else. Now I tell people, if you want 2 words that'll tell you how to be wildly successful in selling, be different. Now, I didn't say be weird. That's a different issue. Be different. If you go and if you've read Chip and Dan Heath's book, Made to Stick, they teach about the concept of schema. Schema is a pattern of thinking. And so when we recognize a pattern of thinking, we immediately know exactly what to do. So if I walk into a customer and say, hi, my name's Jerry Acuff, and I work with Delta Point, and we work with market leaders and sales leaders to help them be successful, that's what everybody else does. And so if I do that, what happens is the customer will recognize that, and you will encounter unintentionally and inadvertently sales resistance. But if you go in and say, and this is one of the things that I teach my coaches about recruiting, when that prospect says to the coach, why should I come to your school? Now I can promise you that 99.9% of all coaches have a spiel that they give about why you should come to Duke, or why you should go to UMass, or why you should go to VMI, or whatever. I teach coaches don't do that, because if you do that, you sound like everybody else. Here's what you say. Now, obviously, if you're sitting in somebody's living room, whether it's a female soccer player that you're trying to recruit, or whether it's a lacrosse player, or whether it's a football player, or basketball player, and that person says, why should I come to UMass, or why should I come to Bentley? My answer is going to be, I'm not sure you should, because they ain't never heard that before. And they're going to say, well, what do you mean? And I'm going to say, well, look, the reality is I'm here because we really like for you to think about our university, but I don't know enough about you and about what we're looking for in our program in terms of not only your attitude, but your expectations before I could ever say to you that we're right for you. So I'm going to need to ask you some questions to understand if there's a fit or not. And I guarantee you'll be the only person that does that, because everybody else just gives a spiel. And so I think you got to be different. And I think what we talk about in our new book, which is what I've been talking about forever, is that you can't think like a customer if you don't know what the customer thinks. And the reality is most customers stop short of telling you what they really think because they don't trust you yet. So your tonality matters. I mean, if you read Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference, he talks about the most powerful tool you have in selling is your voice. And you need to pause more. If you talk fast, people don't think that they're being heard. And so there's lots of small things, but all of those small things are the things that differentiate you from everybody else, that the average person in selling has simply been trained the wrong stuff. That's my bias, Debbie.
Thank you. It's a great answer. I have learned a lot. Thank you.
Hi, Jerry and Nick. My question kind of piggybacks off of failure, but more, Jerry, you talked about being introverted and how that led you to fail your first sales call and you flunked out of your job. Do you feel in your life you've overcome being introverted? Do you still feel in your day-to-day job that you tend to still have those moments where you have to almost give yourself a pep talk to go into that? Because I feel I'm introverted, maybe not to a crazy extent, but I still do feel that there's sometimes I do have to think of stuff before I do it in order to do it. Can you touch on failure, how you overcame being that introverted, and how you come to the point that you are in your life now?
Well, in first place, I don't think I ever overcome being introverted. I will tell you that just if you want to, there's a video or two on YouTube about me talking about why introverts make better salespeople than extroverts. And let me tell you why introverts make better salespeople than extroverts. Number one, introverts are far more interested in the other person than they are themselves. The second thing is introverts are way, way, way better listeners. And they're far more likely to use curiosity to actually understand what the customer thinks. The fourth thing, which I think goes back to what Zev said early on, they are remarkable builders, relationship builders. And so in my mind, in fact, I'll tell you that the vast majority of people that I know that make 7 figures in selling are introverts. They're not extroverts. Now, I'm not saying that you can't be successful as an extrovert, because I certainly know you can. But I think introverts, you got to remember this, selling is a thinking person's game. And introverts are better at thinking than extroverts. Extroverts are better at talking, usually. Now, if you find an extrovert who's willing to sort of put the governor on and really start thinking about what does it take to be successful, you can be successful. So I don't think I've ever overcome being introverted. What I've learned is that I have a lot of confidence that I'm always trying to do the right thing. And to me, the right thing oftentimes, probably 6, 7, 8 times a year, is to tell somebody that I'm not the right person for you, but I know who is, and I connect them. Because I do believe that when I say, we're not for everybody, I mean that. And it usually shocks people. I mean, I had a guy who was going to pay me $20,000 to go to Dallas. I could have gone and seen Nick. But he wanted me to teach 15 people. And I know he told me what his revenue was. I'm thinking, I'm going to charge you guy $20,000. He's going to have to pay my expenses, which are another 3 or 4. I said, I wouldn't hire me. I said, first place, I know a guy in Dallas. His name is Tim Wackel. He doesn't have a book, but he's as good a sales trainer as there is in America, certainly as good as I am. And so I asked the guy when he called to finalize the deal. And I said, look, man, are you open to another option? He said, yeah. And I said, well, look, I wouldn't hire me if I were you. And he said, why? I said, because I think it's too much money for your company. He said, no, but we've reconciled that. I said, I know, but I haven't. And I said, honestly, there's a guy in your backyard, and I called him before I called you to see if he was available this day and if he would do it for half the price I would. He will. Do you want his number, or do you want to still give me the contract? It's your decision. And he said, I want his number. And he got the business. I never heard from the guy again. I didn't care, because I think you have to be true to yourself. And when you do that, you can do that as an introvert. You can do that as an extrovert. But introverts are simply people that are more naturally focused on other people. And that's why I think, now that Daniel Pink in his book, To Sell is Human, he says that the most successful people are what's called ambiverts, AMBIVERT, which are people that are sort of on the borderline of introvert and extrovert. And I probably fall on that, grid. But I think introverts make wildly successful people. And as long as they can get past their preconceived notion that introverts don't have the personality to be successful in selling, they can be wildly successful just by being their authentic self. And I tell every audience I talk to, whether it's 5,000 or 5, the most important thing you can do is be your authentic self. Whenever you try and be somebody else, you will always fail. Be yourself.
Thank you.
Runway. Oh, yes. Hi. I have previously worked in China in real estate sales. So I was confused when I faced a customer who rejected me completely, and I didn't know how to continue the conversation with them. So my question for both of you is that how to deal with the customer who has completely rejected you, and how to keep in touch with them.
Nick, you probably deal with that more than I do.
Part of the thing is you're going to get rejected, and sometimes you're going to get rejected completely. I mean, if you're not, then my gosh, you're God's gift to selling. But you should expect that, and you should be. The way I deal with it mentally, and this is part of kind of preparing your mind for that, is, hey, no big deal. He doesn't necessarily deserve to work with my awesomeness anyway. And I'm gonna kind of move on and debrief myself on what I did right and what I did wrong. Now, does that mean I'm not going to reattack that customer or try to find a different way? A lot of times, I think the people that reject you just straight out, they're probably not the decision maker anyways, in many cases. most decision makers are used to listening to sales pitches and making decisions and doing it pretty fast. So maybe you find a different avenue into that company or that place of business that is more aligned with your product and what you're trying to sell. I mean, I would reattack that same person. I would take I'm a little bit introverted myself. And you don't ever overcome that. I tell people all the time, if you don't want to be invited to weddings, don't have any friends. And that's because I don't mean that straight up, don't have any friends. I like my alone time. I cherish my alone time to think. I cherish my family time with my wife and kids. And I say no to a lot of social settings because I am a little bit introverted myself. But I think you just look at it and you have to assess why you think they might have rejected you, or flat out ask them, you know, what is it that has you telling me no? I would like to learn more because you may help me. Ask for help. You may help me down the road. I may not be, like Jerry said, we may not be a great fit for you, but you may know somebody who is. Worst case scenario, I walk away from this and you helped teach me something. People inherently usually like to help people. They like to help other people. And so ask that question.
Yeah, I don't think I can add much to Nick. I think it's brilliant advice. It is one of the things I did hear one time. It's the foremost powerful words in the English language is "I need your help."
Yeah.
And I think Nick alluded to that. The other thing I would tell you, I lost a $350,000 sale last Friday, so I wasn't completely shunned, Runwin, but you know, to lose a $350,000 sale that I was 98.9% sure we would make, I had to do exactly what Nick said. I got to go back and say, what did I do wrong? And so actually there were three of us on the phone talking to 6 or 7 people there, and we didn't prepare correctly. I wasn't ready for what they were going to do. I made the assumption because we had this relationship with the decision maker that we would get the business. So we're now going to have a debrief on Monday and talk about how do we make sure that doesn't happen again, because that rejection wasn't their fault. It was my fault. And so this goes back to exactly what Nick said, is to sort of go back and say, what could you have done differently? Now, I love his idea about going back and say, look, you know, I really would like to get your help. If you don't want to see me, that's fine. But can you at least give me some ideas about some things I could do differently that might get me access to other people? People love us, as Nick said, they love to teach and they love to help. But looking inward is the key.
Thank you.
So my question is specifically for Nick. I read in your bio that in 2014, you swapped from sales to management. And that really struck me because I currently am kind of in that position where I did do a sales internship. Now I'm looking towards management. I feel very 50-50 about it. So I was just wondering, you know, the pros and cons in your mind, like management compared to sales. If you have any personal advice for me on how to choose which one.
If you want my personal advice, start in sales. And the reason I say that is because in sales, if you can learn how to sell, you'll always have a job. And at the end of the day, learning how to sell, you're dealing with a vast array of personalities and people that you can sell to, which will in turn help broaden your tool belt as a manager. Having skins in the game help as a manager. Life experience helps as a manager. I don't think there's cons to both, right? And there's pros to both. If I was to say, what is a pro to selling? You're in control of your destiny. It's you versus everyone else. And it's really like a baseball team, right? You win as a team or you win as an organization, but you as the left fielder might have made the play. You as the salesperson might have made the play that pushed your company over the threshold that they needed to hit for their yearly goal or their yearly quota or whatever it is. So there's a lot of individuality to selling, but you are part of a greater team and a greater cause. When it comes to management, you have to steer the greater cause. And you have to have a lot more selflessness. Quite frankly, you better be really selfless. And there are times that it will be an absolute frustrating experience being a manager. We talked early on before we got too deep in this. You're going to deal with so many different personalities, and you got to be able to understand why Nick Richardson did this way and why Jerry isn't going to do it that way ever. But you have to work with Jerry's skill set in order to make Jerry successful, because the sales principles are exactly the same, but the personality and the who they are is completely different. You have to find a way to help them hone their craft to be successful. And if you can't do that, then you won't be an effective manager. Not being an effective manager, that's a con. But there are pros and cons to each. The biggest pro to being a manager is taking someone who has zero experience, giving them an opportunity, mentoring, coaching, and developing them, giving them as much advice as possible, and then watching them succeed, watch them get promoted, and then watch them be a provider for their family and create a wonderful lifestyle for themselves and their family. That's a pro to being a manager. But I think there's many steps before you get to that point that you really need to understand people. And quite frankly, I think sales is one of the best professions to get you there.
Perfect. Thank you for your answer.
Ivan.
Yeah, hello. My question is for Jerry, and I learned in your bio that you've gone to Virginia Military Institute, and military is quite universal because I've served as well, and it's pretty strict and vertical, and you probably have learned that you should never question your commander's orders, do everything, say everything as you're told according to the handbook, which makes your mind pretty blocked. And selling, as you mentioned, is a thinking process, which is pretty much the opposite, where you can fail, you can try out different things, which you cannot do in the military. My question is, how did you transform your approach and mindset in the beginning while when you started working in sales?
Well, I was never, when I went to VMI, when I went there, we had 1,200 students, they were all male. And it was, a very Spartan environment, very rigid, very disciplined, et cetera. I was not a great student. I was on academic probation 6 of the 8 semesters I was there. And so they did give me rank my second semester, my senior year, because the guy who was the commandant wanted me to go in the Army because he said I was a leader. And I said, yeah, but I'm not the kind of leader who's going to be very good in the Army. So I knew myself that I wasn't right for the Army. The good news is I didn't really have to go in the Army, but for 90 days because they had too many officers in the Vietnam War. But I learned a lot in the military that did transfer, I think, to my business. And that is, and Nick talked about this, which I think is really important. You got to learn to deal with people. And when you're in a military environment, there's people you hate, there's people you love, there's people you could care less if you ever see them again. And your success is really dependent on how you interact with each of those segments. And so I learned a lot about how do you actually learn to deal with people that you don't really care a lot about or don't know much about. And I think the military prepared me for that. The other thing that's interesting about VMI, when I got hired, I would never have hired me. I woke up one day running the company. I was, I ran a $650 million company. started as a rep, and then woke up one day running the company. And I asked the guy who hired me, I said, why did you hire me? I would never have hired me. I was a manager for 8 years. I had the #1 district out of 70, 7 out of 8 years. 13 of the 20 people I hired got promoted. But I said, I would never have hired me. He said, let me tell you why I hired you. I hired you because you went to BMI. He said, and I said to myself, if that guy goes to BMI, he's reasonably smart and he can communicate, he'll be a success in our business. Because what he knew was that the discipline that you learn in the military and the relationship building you learn in the military with people you don't naturally connect with carries over into everything you do. And I will tell you, 2 of my closest friends, one's a 2-star general who's now the superintendent at VMI. The other one is a 4-star general who was in charge of CENT Command. And these are 2 of the brightest, greatest business minds I've ever met in my life. And they learned every bit of it in the Army. So I think that while there's a lot of rigidity in the Army, there's also a lot of strategic thinking. There's a lot of planning. There's a lot of developing people for promotion. It's such a microcosm of what the real world is like. I think people misjudge what you get out of it based on my experience. Is that helpful?
Yeah. Thank you.
Great question, Ivan. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, Jerry and Nick. I'm Jessie. And I did have a question about being an introvert. So thank you, Jerry, for already answering that. But my other question is specifically for Nick, and it kind of has multiple parts. But so the first part is working in like sports sales. Who would you say is your typical customer or client? And then would you say like you're like a normal person, or if there's like, I don't know, like a certain organization or a group of people that you focus on? And then where do you find your customers or clients? And with that, when trying to find them, have you ever found yourself where you can't find any? And if so, where do you look to find more customers?
Perfect. Are they breathing?
Yes.
Then they're a potential customer. A lot of people think that you have to be a sports fan to be a season ticket member, or be a suite rental customer, or be a group buyer. Let me give some examples of church youth group, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Heritage Night, Hispanic Heritage Night, Italian Heritage Night. There's a variety of different things that you can incorporate the sale of tickets to games, group tickets in particular, school groups, high school baseball, little league baseball, softball. Heck, you can sell to youth football teams. There's a variety of different avenues that you can go to sell tickets. So I don't think there's a cap on necessarily who can be a customer. We're not selling a technology that can only be like payroll technology. It's all, it's, you got to be a business to use that. You're not an individual, right? I'm not buying payroll technology so I can figure out how I will pay my kids their allowance, which they don't get one, right? So with sports, there's not a cookie cutter perfect fit for a client. Kind of what we look for is there an opportunity? Let me give an example. A church group, right? What is a church as a business trying to do? Because yes, it is a business. I mean, they're trying to save souls, right? But what is a church's business? To increase attendance, to increase their membership, right? Well, how do you increase their membership? Well, by inviting people to come to church. And if any of you go to church, you know how uncomfortable it can be to invite someone to go to church, right? Well, what's a great way to increase attendance? Have your youth or adult group come to a baseball game, invite your friend to the baseball game with your church group, and now all of a sudden you're in a more comfortable social setting with your church group, and hopefully they have some enjoyment being around the people they're there with, And then that hopefully makes your invite to bring them to church a little bit easier, right? So it's a more comfortable setting. And a lot of folks say, well, why don't you just take, from a business standpoint, why don't you take your client to dinner, to a nice steak dinner? How many people are getting taken to a nice steak dinner? A lot. Jerry, how many times have you been invited to go to a nice steak dinner because somebody's trying to sell you something? A lot. And what do? You sit across the table from them and you look at one another and you have conversation. Well, the unique thing about baseball is you sit knee to knee beside one another and you watch something that, whether you're a fan or not, can produce emotions that help break down walls and build a level of interest between you and that potential customer. So as a business, I'm looking at it as a more unique way to engage a customer that I'm potentially trying to sell something, or say thank you to a customer that I've already sold something to, and hopefully build that relationship even deeper. When it comes to like a sweet sell standpoint, a lot of what we're looking at is customer engagement, or similar to the season ticket buy, you're also doing employee engagement. And so I want to reward my employees for hitting their sales quota, or I want to reward my employees for going, 365 days injury-free on a job site. And how am I going to do that? I'm going to host a suite where they can invite their family out there. And so their family feels rewarded. So when their family buys into the company being safe and creating a safe environment for their husband or wife to work at, then therefore they're a champion for the company and what our goals are. And that's a safe work environment in a potentially dangerous hard hat zone or whatever it may be. There's a variety of ways you can look at it. Referrals and recommendations are a massive way to grow. We have a call-in line where people call in to buy tickets. We also have a internet chat where people can chat with people online. And then we have interest forms online where people can fill out what they're interested in. Those are ways that people can come to us, right? So what are we doing to supplement that? I can tell you one thing. When I was a senior account executive, I never once in a 4 or 5 year period got on the call-in line. And I still outsold everyone because I developed quality relationships. I maintained excellent repeat business, and I would get referrals. And the greatest compliment I think a salesperson can get is an unsolicited referral. That's somebody, they love you and champion you so much that they want to tell people about it. And that's a way to capture additional business. And then if all else fails, you're going to do prospecting. I mean, we have a tool called Zoom Info that we use that you can go on and you can search different companies or like companies, people that you already do business with or people you sold. You can look up those, and within a radius of 50 miles, 100 miles, 10 miles, you can look up their yearly revenue. You can look up a variety of things, categorize these companies and give you direct contact information for decision makers within the company. And so you just do research, and you do a little extra research on the front end. Once you find a name, look them up on LinkedIn, find out a little bit about them, and then make a phone call. I also use Google Maps. I will sell something. Just say I sold something to Jerry. I know Jerry's address because it's in our ticket system, right? So I'm gonna Google Maps Jerry's address, and I'm going to zoom out from it, and I'm going to see what businesses are in the vicinity of Jerry, and I'm going to either go see them or I'm going to call them, and I'm going to say, hey, we just did something with Jerry, your neighbor over there. I would love to visit with you and find out a little bit about more, a little bit more about your goals for the company and what you're trying to achieve. And let's see if there's an opportunity that I and the Rangers can help develop those results to champion whatever your goals are.
Okay, thank you.
A good steak dinner is always good. I would never not take a full. Yeah.
I won't say no.
Dukes.
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to thank you both for everything tonight. This has all been fantastic. My name's Tom Duggan. I'm a professional sales major here at Bentley. So this one's for Jerry. So I read your bio. I saw that you won Salesman of the Year twice during your time at Richardson Pharmaceuticals. So just kind of curious, what kind of things do you do in order to sort of separate yourself from the others to ultimately kind of earn that achievement and also build that foundation to get you where you are today?
Well, thanks for that question, Tom. I think I was coachable, number one, and I had a great coach. And the second thing is I worked hard, and I got really good at figuring out what was the most important thing for me to do, which was decide where to spend my time. And so I got really good at understanding who are the people who could change my life. And I will tell you that in sales, that's not ordinarily a huge number. It's probably a huge number in Nick's business, but it's not in mine. If I have 100 people, I actually have an app that is free called Really Linked. It's who do you really want to be linked into? I have 16,000 connections on LinkedIn. If you ask me how many of those 16,000 are crucial to my success, that number is about 100. And the app enables me to stay in touch with them on a consistent, persistent, relevant basis because I assume they're all in my phone. But I got really good at figuring out, number one, who should I spend most of my time with? Because one of the things that salespeople don't really understand is the most valuable resource you have is your time. And, I was reading the draft of my book today, and there's a story in there about somebody who called me and asked for advice. And people will call me, probably once or twice a week, and they'll tell me, what's going on and what they want me to tell them what to do. And this guy's still talking about an office that had 17 doctors, and they weren't using this product, but he had 4 or 5 of them that were really interested in using the product. But the woman who was the receptionist was against the product. She liked the other company, etc. And she was the wife of the person who was the most important person in that office. So his question was, I'm going to go around her and I'm going to get all these other people to say they want my product. And we're this, I'm sure this will, and I said, first place, man, you're nuts. I said, this woman ain't never buying from you. I said, if you want her to buy from you, go build a relationship with her. But you go around her, you're wasting every minute of every second that you spend trying to convince people to go against the decision maker. It's stupid. So number one, figure out who can change your life. Number two, study, learn about selling. One of the things that I learned a long time ago, Gerhard Schwantner told me one time, he said, the more I learn about selling, the more I learn there is to learn. And so I think what you do is you keep learning about selling, you keep reevaluating what you could do differently, what you could do better. And I also think it's really important to find a mentor, find a coach, somebody that you can lean on, somebody that you like, trust, respect, and admire, that'll help you. I had that with my very first boss. And the other thing I would say to you, and this is a whole different subject, when you go out and get a sales job, you better damn well interview whoever's hiring you. You better interview them. You better find out, how good are you at developing people? How are you going to develop me? How many people have you promoted? What's the likelihood that there's advancement in this company? Because I can tell you, there's an awful lot of people that will hire you that have no interest in developing. They want to use you to make themselves successful. You want to go to work for somebody who actually has developed people and is not afraid to let them go because they have potential. And, there's a really interesting book that I would highly recommend you read called The People Principle by Ron Willingham. It's only one chapter that's worth a damn in it. And that's, I think, chapter 4 or 5, where he talks about the 3 dimensions of human performance. And what he talks about is that the way the coach impacts somebody like you or me is they change our view of ourselves. So for example, when I was 37 years old, you know, my life's dream, I came up in a very poor family. I wanted to be a regional manager. Regional manager, you know, in the pharmaceutical business makes $150 a year. You know, I figured I could do that for 15 or 20 years and retire. And I lost an opportunity to be a regional manager, but my boss, who actually got the job, said this to me the night he got the job. He said, look, Jerry, he said, you should have got this job, not me. You're more qualified than I am, but I'm not going to give the job back. So get over. He said, but let me tell you this. He said, this job is not big enough for you. You need to be running our company. And I can promise you, Tom, from that night was the first time in my life I ever thought about running a pharmaceutical company. And 5 years later, I was running that pharmaceutical company because what he did, because he was a great leader, he changed my view of me. And what all of us need in our life is a catalyst that'll change our view of what we are capable of becoming. And I think that's the best advice I can give you. You know, just get a good mentor, go to work for somebody that you believe in, that you know wants to make you successful, and then work your tail off. Keep learning. If you do those things, you'll be wildly successful.
Thanks a lot, Jerry.
All right, it's 9:01 p.m. I promised these students here that they'd be out by 9:10. Gives me about 4 minutes, give or take, for the last few questions that we have. So can we do this in rapid fire fashion? Is that okay with you two for the last couple minutes? Jerry, is that okay? All right, so why don't you guys come on up that have questions remaining? We'll rapid fire them, and then 9:05, we'll stop.
Hey, Jerry and Nick, my name is Zach, and a lot of us in this class are juniors and seniors, so we're kind of applying to like internships and jobs. For me, I think the hardest part of that is the actual application process and not the interview process, just because I trust in like my charisma to get me through that interview process. So how do you guys make yourselves seem valuable or get your foot in the door when all you can do is email somebody or communicate with someone using just simply words and you can't talk to them face to face?
You want to take that, Nick?
Yeah, I would say stop using foot in the door, first of all. Show them and demonstrate to them that you want a career with them. Secondarily, do what a salesperson would do. Just as an example, I get, for every single job opening, I get about 400 applicants. I don't have time to go through that. But if your resume is garbage, I will still give you a chance to interview if you reach out to me and do what a salesperson does. Because guess what? I'm hiring salespeople. So be the job before you get the interview. Do what the job is requiring of you and reach out and actually try to build a relationship.
Yeah, I would tag onto that real quickly. One is if you've actually tried to get a job somewhere and they've turned you down, the easiest place to get a job is go back to them. And so I can tell you that I hired, 20 people. I turned 3 people down, but all three of those people that I turned down, and I turned down 987 people. 3 of the 987 came back to me and told me I'd made a mistake, and I hired every single one of them. And so why did I hire them? Because as a salesperson, just like Neil said, I'm looking for somebody who won't take no for an answer, is persistent, and does things the right way. So I think if you can't get in that way, number one, try and find somebody to introduce you, but don't be afraid to go back to them over and over and over again. We're looking for people in sales that are persistent without being pushy.
Yeah, Jerry, I couldn't agree. I've hired 5 people that I've turned down once before. One is still on my team. The other 4 have been promoted, and every single one that's been promoted have sold premium contracted product with us, which is a big deal.
Thank you, guys.
Hey guys, my name is Jake. My question is primarily for Nick. So working for the Texas Rangers, I'm sure there are some times where other outside factors can get in the way of you trying to sell or whatever you're trying to sell. So my question for you is, how do you sort of navigate how the team's doing and how the overall franchise is doing? And how are you able to sort of still get the message out to your customers when inevitably the team's ebbs and flows, like the performance of the team ebbs and flows?
I just think you have to never sell team performance. Stay organized, know the people that like team performance so that you can shoot the fish in a barrel whenever your team does get good. because they're still in your contact Rolodex. But at the end of the day, you're not focused on team performance. You're focused on what your facility, for us, Globe Life Field, can provide that customer through the avenue of professional baseball.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any parting words, gentlemen, to 32 individuals that are thirsty for knowledge? Any lasting words that you can leave on these kids as they go off tonight and go on in their careers?
Yeah, the only thing I would suggest is please read The Power of Consistency by Weldon Long. It is a book that everybody in the world should have to read. It's about how do you create a prosperity plan, and you do it by being consistent. I mean, if you listen to Nick, it's clear that he's consistent as he can possibly be. And also, he thinks about his business. If you read the Power of Consistency, he will teach you how to create a prosperity plan that'll make you a millionaire if you want to be one.
Love that, man. I'm going to buy Jerry's books here pretty soon, so I will.
Don't do that. Send me an email. I'll send them to you, Nick. I'll sign them and send them to you.
I love that. Man, there is truly no greater thing than self-development. There's just not. And that's reading, that's get used to reading. If you're not used to reading and you hate reading or you read slow, guess what? You only get better by doing. So do it. Listen to a podcast, watch some YouTube videos, listen to the people around you, get a mentor like Jerry's mentioned multiple times. And then once you get to a point where you're having success, begin to mentor others as well. One of my favorite quotes is by an MMA fighter, which I could give zero cares about MMA, but the quote is really on point. It's by Frank Shamrock, who was an MMA champion. He said, every fighter to be great needs to have someone better to learn from. That's your mentor. They need to have someone lesser to teach. That's your mentee. And they need to have someone equal that they can challenge themselves against. That's your competition. That's your peers. And I can tell you guys one thing. When you find someone that you can coach, you will grow as fast as anything, because all the things that your mentor has taught you that sometimes doesn't quite sink in, as you begin to relay that information to someone else, all of a sudden you're like, holy crap, this is true. This works. It will gain or grow your self-confidence. And I think if you do those things, you're only sky's the limit. And then kind of the last thing that I don't know where this quote came from, but it's something I just found that I loved, is never say that's not my job. First, it oozes arrogance. It oozes laziness. But at the end of the day, if you help and you chip in, even when it's not your responsibility, and you just find a way to get it done, you're going to find plenty of growth opportunities in that experience. And I don't care what you call me. I have a VP title here with the Rangers. Guess what? I'm the one that goes and cleans the storage room to make sure it's organized for our reps. I don't care. I want the best selling opportunity for our people. And if I'm not setting the standard and the example, then where else are they going to get it from? Probably somebody I don't trust. So I better be the one setting the standard and the example.
Great advice. Thank you both. From all of us, thank you for dialing in from Virginia. Thank you for coming to us again, Nick, from Texas. I know your son's playing baseball, so go get to that baseball game. Interesting to have two guys that have such a voracious reading habit on one Zoom call. I don't think I've ever had this, but from all of us, from all of the students here, thank you. Thank you guys so much.
Thank y'all. Thank you for having us, Jeff.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Listen, guys, next week, chapter 9, work on your midterm. Midterms are due prior to class, okay? They have to be to me prior to class next week.
Email?
Email them to me. Email them to me. It's easiest. We'll talk about chapter 9. Sean Penix is going to be our guest next week. He of the Dallas Cowboys. So we have a great week in store for you. Have fun with your midterms. Can't wait to read them. Have a great night. Go Red Sox. All right. Get this. See you guys.
See ya.
Thanks, dudes. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.